rolled out sending ground troops to help Ukraine fight Russia. Details on these and other stories at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Major truck crash south of Bloemfontein this morning, blocking the N1. It's between Bloem and Teerpoort Dam. It's just near the Teerpoort exit, actually, so expect some delays as you approach the area, and obviously diversions off the M1. I would think it's a major incident. Probably take some time to clear that scene up as well. Over in the Eastern Cape, protesting taxi drivers, we understand, blockading the N2 just north of Mount Frere. So if you're doing Mount Aleph, Mount Frere, there is some disruption. If you're coming from Mount Aleph, just as you sort of get into the Mount Frere area. A major multi-vehicle pile-up on the Higginson Highway in central Chatsworth this morning. If you're leaving Chatsworth towards the N2, that is a really big backlog. The Bel Air Road already backlogging from the M7 up past Chief Albert Turley. On your way to return to that is roadworks. That has been really having a bad impact on the N7. It gets really heavy from Queensborough through towards Bel Air as you sort of pick up that roadwork disruption. So we'll keep an eye on that. Bit of rain across parts of the greater Durban area. Durban through to Matuba this morning, up through Mpangeni. Just rain all the way through. And Cape Town, a crash on the N2 going inbound at Spine Road, just by Spine Road in front of Khayelitsha. So backlogging of traffic coming through that area towards Cape Town Central. Also still no traffic lights, M7, Jakes Kerwell and R300. So delays on both of those routes heading out of Mitchell's Plain. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Ray Machlaka, good morning.
Good morning. Hi there.
Asian markets, US markets, how are they looking?
Well, both markets are mostly down. In fact, they are down across the board. Investors are taking a cautious approach to investing or trading this morning. They are waiting for inflation data from the US and Europe before making investment decisions. Central bank officials around the world have said they need greater confidence that inflation is coming down before cutting interest rates. In Asian markets, China's Shanghai Composite is down 0.7%, Hong Kong's Hang Seng is down 0.3%, and Japan's Nikkei is down 0.1%. Before the US market opens later today, the US futures market is down. Nasdaq, Dow Jones and S&P futures are each down 0.1%. And in the currency market, the US dollar to the rand is slightly stronger at 19.13.
This Sasfin story is amazing. SARS wants 4.9 billion rand from Sasfin because of what Sasfin was doing, or what allowed its clients to do.
Yeah, Sasfin Bank is a niche bank that lends money and offers banking services to small and medium-sized businesses. Sasfin has been slapped with a 4.9 billion rand bill by tax collection agency SARS. The money that SARS wants from Sasfin relates to unpaid taxes by the bank's former clients. SARS says it was unable to collect taxes and penalties from former foreign exchange clients of Sasfin. These clients were allegedly involved in a criminal syndicate that colluded with some of Sasfin's employees to expatriate money illegally. Sasfin has rejected the claim by SARS as baseless and having no likelihood of success. A potential fine of 4.9 billion rand could potentially bankrupt Sasfin Bank. The company that owns Sasfin Bank is only worth 700 million rand on the JSE, while the fine that SARS wants to impose is well above that at 4.9 billion rand.
And then obviously the industry gas users of industrial gas still warning of the looming gas shortages. I don't know what the solution to this is.
Yeah, by June 2026, South Africa could run out of natural gas supplies that is mainly used by big industries. Petrochemicals company Sasol is a major supplier of gas in South Africa that is sourced from Mozambique. But Sasol's current contract with Mozambique's government comes to an end in June 2026. That is when gas fields in Mozambique are expected to dry up. The Industrial Gas Users Association of Southern Africa is warning that South Africa's government has no alternative solutions in place when Sasol's contract ends, so this might lead to major shortages of natural gas in South Africa.
Ray McClarkap, thank you. Ray, of course, back with us in an hour's time. 23 minutes to 8 to 7.
Africa Update.
All right, let's go to Sipho Mantula, because it is the right time to go to Sipho Mantula. Russ Advocate Sipho Mantula, good morning. In Senegal, the National Dialogue Commission, they're proposing the delayed presidential elections now to be held in June.
Stephen, they are also recommending President Macky Sall to remain in office until his successor is sworn in. This is very important coming from Ndiwa Paye, who is one of the commissioners of this National Dialogue Commission that has started on Monday ending yesterday. Remember, Stephen, that these 2 days of dialogue organized by Sall is to ease the tensions that has been going on since January early this year, that he has delayed this election date of February 25 to the last month of the year, which is December 10th. Now, as we are hearing that this is still a recommendation, Stephen, I don't think it has been endorsed. It's still a recommendation coming from the Commission, looking at that the month of May also has a number of religious festivals, because they should have pushed it as early as May, Stephen, rather than to wait for June. But this is coming from the National Dialogue Commission. It has to go probably through legal challenges, because once you have opposition that has done the mock vote and the opposition lamenting about this delay, you might have a litigation after this National Dialogue Commission hearings that have been held since Monday until yesterday.
And Chad, their election agency, now confirming presidential elections over May and June, so at the same time as us.
Stephen, at the same time with us, they are pushing May and June, and at the same time they're looking at, you remember that Idris Deby took power from his father, and there were delays around these elections in Chad. So it is important for them that the Chad election agency say that beyond this date that they are pushing between May and June, the country will fall into what you call a legal dilemma, where there'll be a vacuum of power. But you know, all the military coups, Stephen, they've been coming under this guise of saying transfer power to the civilians. But the Chad election agency coming very clear to say we want 2 rounds of elections between May and June, and that's where the military, that's his power in 2021, might able to can give power to the civilians.
And then in Nigeria, Nigerian workers, they've got a big protest there. They want government to abandon World Bank policies.
Stephen, it is worrying, because if you have one of the superpowers or the big economic hub of the continent, where you have the Labour Congress that has embarked on a nationwide strike, raising this issue of that they are using a buzzword that they say end hardship now. It is the issue that they are saying that 12 million vulnerable households are suffering from the World Bank and IMF policies. Now they are pushing the government of Bola Tinubu to say that it is important for him to look at the challenges that they've been facing in that country, that yes, they do rely even on their gross domestic products from ICT, banking, manufacturing. There is still a challenge in the capital city, Lagos, in Abuja, how to deal with these economic challenges. And even ECOWAS, Stephen, I don't think it is coming to party to assist this superpower in the West Africa region.
And then in Switzerland, our Minister of International Relations, Dr. Naledi Pandor, she's in that big session.
Stephen, this is a very important session, the fifth session of the Human Rights Council, that one of the issues that he raised yesterday was on the war in Middle East around the disarmament. An important issue, even if in this council they are dealing with the rights of children and women. Most of the issues are also affecting people living with people who are not able, even disabilities. It is one of the key issues, and there is effective participation, inclusion into. So these are the issues that are finally, I think it's also going to impact of human rights.
Russ Advocate Sipho Mantula, I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there, losing you on that line. Sorry about that. 19 minutes to 7.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Maxwell on the line from Tswane. Well, the death of AKA Kiernan Forbes, now these arrests. We still don't know who funded this, Maxwell.
Yeah, for me, it's a big worry, Stevens, because this matter has not even went to court, but the Swaziland broke this news to us at the weekend, but here at home there was a lot of denial, if you remember, Stephen Grootes, up until last night, that press conference where everything was confirmed. And when you check the rules, what happens, still have a long way to go to court. I hope this matter is not bungled like Senzo Maiwa situation at that matter. And the president visit to Mpumalanga, condolences to those people who perished when they were coming to the manifesto. It's a second incident that is happening from the ruling party, Stevens. I'm very worried ahead of Siyangoba rally at the FNB Stadium, or what will be happening on that one. But Paul Mashatile, what if those guys, you still write them the letters? Who's supposed to be writing the letters? The people who are investigated, who are close to the politician or ordinary people? Because what if you have written this letter to those guys in Swaziland that you want to arrest them, Stephen Grootes, before you arrest them? I don't think it makes sense at all. And thank you so much for taking my call.
No, Maxwell, thank you on the line from Sona. Yeah, I was very curious about what the Deputy President said. We shouldn't jump to arrests. 18 minutes to 7.
And we would buy 500 cars, and we would buy 500 more. So sell your car for the best price, and we won't think about it twice. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da-da. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da-da.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
It takes one encounter with Africa for your world to change. From the 26th to the 28th of February, the global business event sector will experience the majesty of Africa at Meetings Africa. Meetings Africa showcases Africa's diverse services and products in the meetings, incentives, conferences, and exhibitions industry. Come experience Africa's spirit of collaboration at Sandton Convention Center. Meetings Africa, unlocking Africa's opportunities through quality connections.
Mzansi Afrika! All roads lead to FNB Stadium on Saturday, 9 March for the Soweto Derby. And we want you to be part of it. SABC Sport and Vodacom are giving you a chance to win your share of 30 double tickets. That's not all. As a Buccaneer or Corsi fan, you can also win double jerseys of Orlando Pirates or Kaizer Chiefs for you and your friend. To enter this exhilarating giveaway, head over to sabcsport.com and visit the competition page. Entries close on Tuesday, 5 March 2024. T's and C's apply. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM 104 to 107. Nationwide.
16 minutes to 7. Good morning. SARS is now confirmed. It's instituting legal action against the company Sasfin, and it's holding Sasfin responsible for the fact that 8.2 billion rand was able to leave South Africa and was not taxed by SARS. SARS is now asking Sasfin for 4.9 billion rand. The money all stems from a company called Gold Leaf Tobacco. It's controlled by the Zimbabwean Simon Rudland. Sasfin says some of its workers were moving money through these accounts and then deleting the records of the transfer. In other words, it didn't necessarily know what was happening because its own workers were deleting the records of these investigations. Polly van Wyk is an investigative journalist at Scorpio with Daily Maverick. Polly, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning, Stephen.
What exactly was happening at Sasfin? How was this money moving around?
Yeah, it's an extraordinary tale, and it's sort of unprecedented in South Africa what happened. In short, it relates to a massive, extraordinary transnational plunder network that Simon Rudland, the Zimbabwean tobacco boss, had initiated and set up. Now, a lot of people in different spheres were colluding to, in effect, move a hell of a lot of money, perhaps more than 8.2 billion rand. We know about at least that 8 billion rand so far out of South Africa without paying taxes, without telling the authorities like the Reserve Bank, and without any legalities around it. And in that process, it seems like at least 11 employees of SASFIN were corrupted in helping. Now you have to, everyone who's doing business, especially trans-border business, know that there's a lot of laws regulating money movements across those borders. Now the SASFIN employees circumvented and broke all those regulations and laws. In that, the money was just moved across the border without proper documentation, sometimes faked documentation, sometimes none at all. The money was moved abroad. The money movement reports to the Reserve Bank were deleted, and some of the bank statements, the transaction statements, were deleted as well. Now SARS says, we have a problem, you caused the country a huge economic loss, and therefore we are initiating a damages claim.
I don't think this has ever happened before. Could SASFIN have known what its employees were doing? And this gets to a much greater question of whether or not they were sort of, I suppose the legal phrase is, exhibiting proper care and diligence. Were they taking steps to ensure that their workers couldn't lie to them like this?
Yeah, exactly. You're on the money, so to speak. So SASFIN says the managers didn't know. Michael Sassoon, the CEO, was at pains to say that none of the senior management was involved. SARS says, but it was your job to know in terms of the law and in terms of regulations, in terms of banking regulations. You ought to have known. It was your work to have known. And therefore, we are holding you liable because you were severely negligent.
And Rutland and Goldleaf Tobacco, I mean, they're really, yes, SASFIN might be liable, but they're really the ones who are doing all of this. Is anyone investigating them, or they're sitting in Zimbabwe?
I think Zimbabwe is also a bit of a problem for them, but they're flitting in and out of Zimbabwe and South Africa. But it's a international money laundering ring, mostly standing on the legs of tobacco and gold being smuggled and turned into cash. And yes, so SARS, this is actually where the investigation into SASFIN began, because SARS was probing Rutland, but also all the companies around him. There's, in this particular case, at least 19 companies who moved the money across the border, which all seem to be linked to this tobacco and gold smuggling ring of Rutland. But yeah, so GLTC is in trouble, and SARS in 2022 already seized all the assets locally of Rutland and his business partner Adamji.
Paulie van Wyk, thank you. The investigative journalist at Scorpio at Daily Maverick, 11 minutes to 7. Ernie Lai King is the managing director at One Road Consulting, a tax expert. Ernie, good morning. I'm absolutely certain, given your history and your expertise in this, that you're probably going to be dragged into this dispute in some way, shape or form. So there may be limits on what you can say to us. But I've never heard of SARS going after a bank and holding a bank liable in a case like this.
Good morning. Yes, it is quite groundbreaking. The what we know of that is in the public arena are still allegations. I think we must just point out there have been no actual prosecutions, and so I think those are still allegations, and still has to be investigated.
The reason that we actually invited you to talk to us this morning was confirmation from the presidency yesterday that the SARS Commissioner, Edward Kieswetter, is having his term extended for another 2 years. Is this the right move, to have quite a long transition to a new commissioner?
Stephen, it's a very difficult position that South Africa is in at the moment. It's a very, very bad environment in which to try and raise taxes. It's a very bad environment in which to increase taxes. It's really all about the economy, and the economy is not doing well. Our rand is continually weakening. Our tax base is continuing to thin. It's already thin, and it's continuing to thin. There's a lot of unemployment. So to try and change the commissioner now, he was appointed in May 2019, and to try to appoint a new commissioner now in this environment is going to be very difficult. So during the Moyane era, we all know that SARS was hollowed out. There were very good people that used to be there at SARS, very good, competent, very highly experienced people there, that people that had grown through the organization had been there and with career tax people at the Commissioner's office, they all one by one have slowly gone. Either they were hollowed out or they've retired. So the competency and the capacity at SARS is not what it used to be. So we know that after the Nugent Commission, the Judge Nugent that had the commission to have a look at how to remedy what had happened during the Moyane era and the Zuma era, as a result of which they then appointed 3 deputy commissioners, Ms. Backman, who looks after corporate and enterprise, Mr. Makubu, who looks after taxpayer engagement and operations, and Mr. Skoltz, that looks after strategy and modernization. And they give a second line of leadership to assist Mr. Kisvetter, who's been, as we know, he's been there nearly 5 years. And they've been trying to put SARS back on an even keel and improve the capacity and the capability and the efficiency and modernize it, with AI, etc. And it has been a difficult job. SARS has got the image now of being quite anti-taxpayer, not least of which is trying to get your VAT refunds back. And it's probably also as a result of what we're seeing out there in the environment as the economy starts to decline and as crime continues to rise. It makes everybody's job difficult, the police, the revenue authorities. So I don't think it would have been a good choice to have a change of leadership at this time.
Ernie Lai King, thank you, Managing Director at One Road Consulting.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. In Pretoria, the Dustmore Tunnel quite heavy, just south of Van der Hof Bremer Street, through the tunnel onto Transorania into Danville. Big backlogs there. Still no traffic lights on Roger Dyson coming from the industrial side in towards the R101. It catches you outbound every morning and back again in the afternoons. The R21 approaching Atlas Road is slow. That's if you're on your way towards the airport this morning. Just after the Benoni exit, it all gets a little bit backed up. A major multi-vehicle crash right in the heart of Chatsworth this morning, the Higginson Highway through towards that Westcliff area. It's quite a big backlog of traffic, about 6 vehicles involved in that crash. And if you're driving into Cape Town, it's heavy passing Khayelitsha this morning, a collision before Borchard's Quarry, so a queue coming through from Spine Road, and then a breakdown on the side of the highway by Jan Smuts Drive, so that's a second queue from the airport. The N2 inbound's very heavy, and there's a Veld fire with a bit of smoke and poor visibility across the N1 between Sable Road and Kuiberg. Get a change. That is slowing traffic all the way back through to Belleville already. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Are you blowing your paycheck on car insurance every month? Monica, 39 from Three Rivers, pays just 1,515 Rand a month for her 2018 BMW 320i.
None of the insurance companies has come near to the price I'm paying. I am happy at Outsurance. I'm going nowhere.
SMS out to 30754 now for a quick quote that could save you hundreds every month. You'll also find out about included benefits like panic assistance and help it out 24-hour roadside assistance. Yusuf, 45 from Tegadal, pays just 700 Rand a month for his 2021 VW Polo.
Help it out. Took the family up to go and see the snow and I got stuck. The service was quick, even though it was in a very remote area. Absolutely phenomenal service from Outsurance.
SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's, and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice.
Diable Noir can't wait to demonstrate to Sekhukhune United that what they did to them in Limpopo will not prevail in Brazzaville. Meanwhile, Babina Nogo targets another victory against Yakadiamama when they close the group stage curtain. This is the CAF Confederation Cup. Catch Diable Noir FC and Sekhukhune United FC on Sunday 3 March at 6 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
Good to hear from you this morning. You know the number 086 000 2032. All right, you've heard the Sasfin story around SARS. There are other stories, of course, around what's happening at the moment. Solomon on the line from Middelburg. Financial institutions, go for it.
Good morning, Stephen. Thanks for taking my call. Stephen, I had a car financed by one of the financial institutions.
Yeah.
So I won't mention their name. But Stephen, why is it that when you pay off your car, let's say you decide maybe it was financed for 5 years, you decide let me pay it off in 2 years or something like that, and then financial institutions always are reluctant to giving you the papers that they're supposed to give you, citing that we might charge you for terminating the contract before time. In my opinion, it's not that the contract is terminated. Because you're not owing anything to that particular contract or car. And I've seen it. There was a story last time when you mentioned on radio that Vodacom had something that they were doing on customers as well. And so I don't know if it's legal. Maybe is it possible we can get an expert to advise on that?
Yeah, Solomon. I mean, I my heart is so with you that if you pay off a debt early, that should be the end of it, and you save yourself a lot of money.
I mean,
but for the institution, what they say is, and this, I don't agree with them. This is just what they say. They say we expected Stephen to take 5 years to pay off his car because he was going to take 5 years. We were going to make, I don't know, R500,000 in interest because you end up paying so much in interest. Now we're only going to make 200,000 rand in interest because Stephen was sensible and he paid off his car early, and so now we've lost out. And as a result, you now have to pay that extra fee. Frankly, Solomon, this is the problem with borrowing money, isn't it? You're always in that position.
But I mean, the fact of the matter, you've honored your commitments, isn't it?
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
But that's
Stephen,
their argument, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. And please follow up for us on that network tower, which I mentioned the other day, which is situated in Kachan village, that hasn't been switched on due to the tribal authorities demanding the
Solomon, thank you. Telkom got in touch and said that they had nothing around the tribal authority that is causing the problem. But Solomon, I think we will keep trying on that because there's a very strange story. There's a big conversation yesterday about peanut butter, and of course the problem, around whether you know that it's safe at the moment, and that led to a conversation around crunchy or smooth peanut butter. Voice notes on that this morning.
Good morning, Stephen. Just a little confused, man. I was in a Pick n Pay store yesterday and I saw Pick n Pay peanut butter on the shelf. What's happening? Is it just a particular batch that's unsafe, or can we now eat Pick n Pay peanut butter again? Yugi from Queenstown.
Thanks. I don't know is the short answer. I mean, I presume if they're selling it, that they've taken steps to make sure that it is safe. I would like to presume that. And I think we can probably take that. We can probably have that presumption. But it was the no-name brand, so, that had the problem. And I know the National Consumer Commission said yesterday they were asking everyone to just check that the stuff that they were making, the peanut butter that they were making. And then voice notes around one of the other big stories this morning, Judge Mandisa Maya being nominated to be Chief Justice by President Cyril Ramaphosa.
Morning, Stephen. I think the nomination of Justice Maya is a continued effort by the ANC-led government to promote women as equals to everyone in the country. And it has done really well on that case. You can even see in its own ranks that it's striving to get to 50-50, giving women important positions. Thank you, Smutsumi.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if it's an ANC decision or a President Ramaphosa decision or both, but certainly I think that's one of the big issues. All right, lots to come. There's been an important enforcement order from the information regulator to stop people bothering you with emails and trying to sell you things. We'll talk about that. And then, of course, a big focus on the nomination of Judge Mandisa Maya. More to come on the AKA arrests as well. You're with SFM leading the conversation at 7 o'clock.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
Top stories this hour. Modise rubbishes claims of joining MK party, and Ukraine forced out of 2 more villages. Good morning. And on our elections-related news, ANC-NEC member Thandi Modise has refuted claims that she has left the ANC and joined the MK party of former President Jacob Zuma. In an article by Opera News Hub, it is reported that Modise, who is also the Minister of Defence, left her position in the cabinet and resigned from the ANC to join the newly formed MK party. Modise was also a former MK combatant. She has described the claims as nonsensical and only meant to sow divisions in the ANC.
I reject all these nonsensical lies that I have left the African National Congress for any other party. I will stay in the ANC. I intend to die as a member of the ANC, no matter what happens to the ANC. So I want people to know that those lies out there could not have come from me. And I want to say to the loyal members of the ANC, continue doing the good work of making sure that we continue to improve the living conditions of our people, that our comrades who have left, who have died even at the hands of the apartheid system, did not die in vain. And that is why no matter what happens within the ANC, I will stay a member of the African National Congress.
Meanwhile, Action SA President Herman Mashaba says that the party is on track for a good performance in the upcoming elections. He announced the party's Western Cape Premier candidate in Menenberg on the Cape Flats yesterday. Angela Sobi, who hails from Woodstock and lived in Menenberg for some time, will be the party's premier candidate for the province. Mashaba says while the party was launched during COVID and had humble beginnings, it is ready to contest elections countrywide, including the Western Cape.
It's an exciting, historic day for us as a new political party. First time to contest in the provincial elections, first time to contest in the national elections. And Western Cape, it's important for South Africa. I think we are aware of the developments, we are aware of the challenges, and we believe we're the only political party that can actually help the Western Cape to really be what it should be.
KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi has confirmed the arrest of 6 suspects for the murders of Keenan aka Forbes and Tebello Tibbs Motswani. Mkhwanazi and Police Minister Bheki Cele briefed the media in Durban last night. Forbes and Motswane were killed last year in February in Durban. Police say they cannot rule out more arrests. Mkhwanazi explains the strategy that police used to root out the suspects, starting with the first arrest in April last year.
The strategy that we employ was that after identifying these 6, we're going to look for parallel cases that they are involved in, and we're going to arrest them on those cases and keep them in custody, but don't charge them on the case that we're investigating, the main case 85 of February last year, which happened in Florida. Because we wanted to make sure that we get almost all the suspects, especially the organizer of the hit.
The trial of the men accused of murder and raping of 6 sex workers is expected to resume in the High Court sitting in Palmbridge in Ekurhuleni. Last week, the court rejected an application by self-confessed sex worker murderer Sfiso Mkhwanazi, who have all the rape charges and the defeating the ends of justice charge against him dropped. Despite this, Judge Kasim Musa found 22-year-old Mkhwanazi not guilty on the first count of rape due to insufficient evidence. The bodies of 6 workers were discovered at the premises of his father's panel beating business in Rosettenville in October 2022. The organization Undoing Tax Abuse, OUTA, says no one should pay for e-tolls even if they receive summons. This follows reports that motorists will have to still pay their outstanding e-toll debt, despite Gauteng Premier Banyazale Sufi confirming that e-tolls will be completely scrapped by the end of March this year. Since inception 10 years ago, the Gauteng government has struggled to collect e-toll revenue from a large number of motorists who are not complying. Motorists in Gauteng are calling on the provincial government to look for other ways to settle the e-toll debt, as they cannot be forced to pay for a service that was ineffective to start with. OUTA CEO Wayne Duvenage is not confident that e-toll gantries will go off next month.
All the past history around this would indicate that it's going to be another missed deadline, especially after a recent announcement by Enoch Godongwana, the Minister of Finance, which indicated that this deal isn't finalised yet, there's still work to be done. But they've been saying this for some time, since October 2022 in the midterm budget policy statement, where Enoch Godongwana did indicate that they've made a decision to fund the bonds not through e-tolls but through other mechanisms. That signalled the end. It was supposed to be pulled at the end of 2022, then in March 2023, now we're in 2024. And they still haven't finalised.
And moving further afield, Ukraine's military says it has been forced out of 2 more villages in the Donetsk region as several NATO countries rolled out sending ground troops to help Ukraine fight Russia. The BBC's Warren Bull has the details.
A Ukrainian military spokesperson said its troops had now pulled back from 3 settlements near Avdiivka since Russian forces captured the town earlier this month. He said Russia had suffered significant losses in the battles, but the withdrawal from territory around Avdiivka comes as Ukraine faces shortages of artillery rounds and other supplies it was expecting from the West 2 years after the war started. The US, Germany, Italy and Britain have all said they would not deploy troops to Ukraine after President Macron of France said nothing should be excluded.
And recapping our top story this hour, ANC-NEC member Thandi Modise has refuted claims that she has left the ANC and joined the MK party of former President Jacob Zuma. I'll be back with the headlines at the bottom of the hour. For SFM News, I am Nomalizo Mandela.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports headlines, it's soccer action, 16 matches into the 2023-24 season, and Mamelodi Sundowns are unbeaten. They had a 3-0 victory against AmaZulu last night, and more soccer news coming in as Benny McCarthy believes he can take Bafana Bafana past the World Cup group stages. We'll bring you the details just before 7:30.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
If you're on your way to the airport in Joburg, the R21, I beg your pardon, going south, there's a breakdown the Atlas Road. And that traffic's reasonably heavy. It's just a single lane on the left that's obstructed, but traffic's parking all the way back through to the Benoni exit. So just be aware of that if it's a time-critical trip to make down. Collision on the Higginson Highway, central Chatsworth, still really badly backing up traffic leaving Chatsworth via Westcliff out towards the N2. That's a really bad backlog. And Cape Town, a crash on the N2 inbound just before you get to Borchard's Quarry. There's a really massive delay coming through from Khayelitsha. Traffic backing up to Spine Road. It's a taxi that is overturned. All EMS personnel and services on the scene. The N2 inbound is a heavy backlog. You might want to come off somewhere like Baden-Powell and go up along Stellenbosch Arterial on a reroute this morning. And there's a felt fire burning beside the N1 between Sable Road and Kuburg Interchange. So that's quite a heavy backlog coming through from Brackenfell. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
8 minutes after 7, good morning. You're with SFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. Glad you're along with us this morning. There's been a big increase in car theft. We'll look at that from 8:30 and just find out if this is more evidence of the rise of syndicates in South Africa. The big story this morning, of course, around AKA Kieran Forbes, the 6 people arrested for his murder and for the murder of Tibbs Motswane. And still, we hear of the coordinator. The question is, who is the funder? Who decided that this is what is going to happen, that AKA is going to be killed or taken out, maybe is a better description. More in the next little while about, we'll speak to the chair of the information regulator, these emails and these phone calls. There's some progress in dealing with that, people trying to sell you things, and they really take up time. And then the other big issue, of course, the nomination of Deputy Chief Justice Mandisa Maya to be the Chief Justice. That coming up in the next few minutes as well. 9 after 7.
Gauteng MEC for Finance, Jacob Mamabolo, will present the budget to the legislature on the 5th of March at 10 a.m. The MEC will reflect on how public funds were used in the last 5 years to provide services to the people. He will further outline the priorities of the Gauteng government and how the budget will be allocated to support economic growth, create jobs, fight crime, and improve the living conditions of people in the townships, informal settlements, and hostels. This message is brought to you by the Gauteng Provincial Government, growing Gauteng together.
USM Alger want to finish their Group A matters on a high note, while Matatanta Pitori target an away victory to travel back to Mzansi's capital city with pride. This is the CAF Confederation Cup. Experience the beauty of African football. USM Alger FC takes on SuperSport United FC on Sunday, 3 March at 9 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
11 after 7, good morning. The information regulator now issuing its first enforcement notice after receiving complaints about companies that are emailing or phoning and calling you when you don't want them to. This notice is against the company FT Rams Consulting. It kept sending emails to a person who said they did not want to receive them. The chair of the information regulator is Advocate Panzi Tlakula. Ma'am, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning, Stephen.
What action are you taking?
Thanks for having us.
Sure. What action are you taking against this company?
Oh, yeah, we issued an enforcement notice in terms of which we ordered the company to take certain steps, for instance, to ensure that they don't send any electronic communication to the complainant and to any other data subject for direct marketing purposes without first obtaining their consent, and that the first communication that they should send to anyone that they want to market to should be the one in which they request their consent. That's how it works. And also further that the data subject has to indicate the form of communication which should be used to market goods to him, because that's what the law says. And also that they should create a database of all people who have withheld their consent and those who don't want to be contacted, so that the company should ensure that they don't contact those people again. There are a number of orders that we have made which have to be complied with within 90 days. And if the company fails to comply with those orders, then we'll issue an infringement notice.
So you can punish the company if it breaks this?
Yeah, that's what is true. The enforcement notice cannot be ignored. Failure to comply with an enforcement notice constitutes a criminal offense. So they have to comply within 90 days. Take all the steps that we have indicated in the enforcement notice. As I say, if they don't, within 90 days, then that's when we issue an infringement notice, and in the infringement notice, that's where we can then fine them up to 10 million rands.
There are a lot of other companies doing this. It's not just FT Rams Consulting that's doing this. There are plenty of other companies that, if someone lodges a complaint, will probably go the same way. You would probably issue a notice against them?
Yes, but we are hoping that this enforcement notice will serve as a warning to others to stop doing what they've been doing. We are hoping so. And also, as I said previously, that we're going to be issuing a guidance note. We're going to be talking to the direct marketing sector, and we're hoping that we'll begin to see the end of this. I mean, the law does allow companies to market, but you have to do so in compliance with the law.
This case, FT Rams Consulting case, is around emails. You've explained the issues around phone calls, that there's a legal argument over definitions, which is kind of amazing. Do you believe you'll, at some point, be able to stop all of these nuisance phone calls that we get?
We hope so, because in this particular complaint, we said that the company should stop sending electronic communication and for unsolicited marketing to any data subject, including the complaint. And we explained that electronic communication, we define it as messages through SMS, through fax, through telephone, through automated machine. So all those, in our view, constitute, I mean, the law is clear, it mentions SMS and others, but does not mention a telephone. But the list in the law of what constitutes electronic communication is not exhaustive. It says electronic communication, including, and then it says SMS, fax, automated machine. That's why we've decided to include a telephone call in that definition.
Advocate Panzi Tlakula, thank you. Chair of the Information Regulator. Appreciate the time. 7:15.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
President Cyril Ramaphosa now confirming he's nominating the Deputy Chief Justice, Mandisa Maya, to be the new Chief Justice in August, when the current Chief Justice, Raymond Zondo, retires from the Constitutional Court. Judge Maya was appointed Deputy Chief Justice in 2022. She had previously been the President of the Supreme Court of Appeal. Of course, she has a long track record in our courts, and if I remember correctly, was the first judge to ever issue a judgment in Xhosa. Zakona Ndlebe is the Research and Advocacy Officer at Judges Matters. Zakona, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Is this the right decision by the President to nominate Judge Maya to be our first woman Chief Justice?
We think it's the right decision because of her track record. As you've said, she's got great leadership skills. We've seen her transform the Supreme Court of Appeal. And she has, as you've said, she's the first person to write a judgment in Xhosa. So she is very innovative. So we think that it is the right decision.
How significant is it that we will have a female Chief Justice for the first time? There are plenty of countries that have never had one.
I think it's very significant. We've never had a woman Chief Justice before in 3 decades since our democracy. And it will send a very strong message, not only to the judiciary, but also to young people that are studying law, young people that want to be in leadership positions, that it's possible. It's possible, and we've seen that transformation is also possible in our country. So it will send a very strong message in terms of transformation, in terms of young people who want to become leaders in the future.
2 years ago, we saw the Judicial Service Commission recommending that she actually be the Chief Justice. At the time, the President then decided he wanted Judge Zondo. I know the JSC has changed since then. Some of its members have changed. Do you think there'll be any serious opposition? I mean, do you expect it to go through the JSC quite easily?
We think that she will go through the JSC quite easily because she's appeared before the JSC 3 times already. She appeared for the Chief Justice position, and then she appeared for the Deputy Chief Justice position as well. So this is going to be the 3rd time. So the JSC is familiar with her. Even those who are new on the JSC, I'm certain that they've seen the interviews. They are aware of who she is, what she brings to the table, as it should bring to the table as the Chief Justice. Everyone knows what her track record looks like. So we think that it will be very smooth. It should be very smooth, and there should not be any opposition. As you remember, in 2022, the JSC basically advised the President to appoint her, Justice Mandisa Maya, as the Chief Justice, although the President decided otherwise. So clearly, back then, there was no opposition to her appointment. But the President decided to make a different decision, which is within his discretion.
One of the main roles of this job, and there are lots of roles as Chief Justice, but is actually to chair interviews of the Judicial Service Commission. We've seen how important that is. So when she becomes Chief Justice, how important will that role be for her?
It will be very important, and it's, the role of a Chief Justice is that of the leadership. She is going to be the leader of the entire judiciary. Chief Justice Mogoeng used to say that he's the face of the judiciary, right? So that was not entirely incorrect, because a Chief Justice leads the entire judiciary. She chairs the JSC. That's going to be an important role, and we're hoping that she's going to bring a lot of change. So you've seen that there's a criteria now with the JSC. We're hoping that there's going to be a code of conduct for commissioners as well. But I also want to add that she's going to have a very big role to play in the entire judiciary as well. As I've mentioned before, that we don't have any sexual harassment policy for the judiciary. So I'm hoping that when she takes the role of Chief Justice, she'll also look into that and make sure that the judiciary moves very swiftly in ensuring that there's a sexual harassment policy. Also, perhaps a maternity leave policy for judges. These are issues that she brought up during her interviews as the Chief Justice for the Chief Justice position in 2022.
So there's certain issues, certain priorities that you think she needs to move on as soon as she can, when she gets the position.
Definitely. Yes, definitely. Those are the priorities that she needs to move on. And we've also conducted research into the judiciary, into the lower courts specifically, and we found that there are a lot of issues in the lower courts that need to be dealt with. The issues of infrastructure, the issues of safety in our courts, as I've mentioned, sexual harassment. So those are quite big issues that she's going to have to deal with as the Chief Justice. And we also have to note that she's going to serve a term she's going to be in the court for 10 years because she's 60 this year, and a Chief Justice's term or a person's term in the Constitutional Court ends when they're 70 or after 12 years. She's been to the court for approximately 2 years now. So she'll be exactly 60 and 12 years when she retires as a judge. So she's got quite a lot of time to make changes to our judiciary. And I think that is a big positive for her.
Zakhona Ndlebe, thank you. Research and Advocacy Officer at Judges Matter. Really do appreciate the time this morning. 20 minutes now after 7 o'clock.
Get South Africa's best adventure SUV. The new Ford Everest XLT 2-litre auto bi-turbo 4x2, now from only $12,999 per month with no deposit. With 7 seats and a power folding third row. Get the new Ford Everest XLT at your nearest Ford dealer today. TNCs apply.
ES Tunis is adamant a win is non-negotiable in front of their home fans against the Sudanese Giants. Meanwhile, Al Hilal is inspired that the best conclusion of the group stage is to triumph on foreign ground. This is the CAF Champions League. Witness Africa's beautiful game. ES Tunis clashes with Al Hilal on Saturday 2 March at 9 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
22 minutes after 7 now, the time. Well, a series of statements yesterday by the Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, reiterating concerns around the use of social media during the elections. Of course, we go to vote on the 29th of May. The Deputy President delivering a keynote address on the principles and guidelines for the use of digital and social media in African elections in Joburg yesterday. Big event involving electoral bodies from across our continent. Janet Love is the Vice Chair of the Electoral Commission. Ma'am, good morning and thank you for your time this morning. Commissioner Love, are you with us? Commissioner Love, are you there? Right, we seem to have a problem with that line. Sorry about that. Not quite sure why. One of those mornings, it would appear, in terms of just getting through to people. But just want to continue the conversation, of course, around disinformation and around what we've seen happening on social media ahead of our elections. People talk about disinformation. Of course, maybe a better way to describe it would actually be to simply say that people are using lies. Commissioner Love, I think you're with us now. Good morning. I don't know if you're in an area with load shedding or if you can hear us. All right.
Can you hear me?
There we are. That's a lot better, yes.
Okay. So,
firstly, how worried are you about what's happening on social media ahead of our elections? People use the phrase disinformation, but really we see many people on social media just lying during elections.
Well, I think that there is a lot of worry about the use of social media. We recognize that people, in whether they're making statements just in, verbal statements or using social media, will lie and can lie just.
All right. Commissioner, I think we've lost you there completely, not able to hear what Janet Love, the Deputy Commissioner, the Deputy Chair of the Electoral Commission, is saying to us at the moment. We'll try and get a stronger connection for you on that and just see if we're able to continue that conversation. 24 minutes now after 7.
Top Sport with Michael Abramson.
In Greenstone.
I think the club, from the administrative position, they've got to make a decision of how it is that they want to do. Because as you would know, as a seasoned commentator, you would know that traditionally Chiefs is not a big spender in terms of transfer window.
Correct.
Chiefs have always relied on their development or recommendations of players that would then come. From an administrative position, take a position and then say, give us 3 years, we've rebuilt our development, because if you look, they've won the Gauteng Development League at the moment at under 17 level and under 15 level, meaning that they're doing something right.
Top Sport on SAFM. Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
All right, a stronger connection, I think, now to Janet Love, Deputy Chair of the Electoral Commission. Ma'am, sorry about this. How worried are you about people lying on social media during our elections?
We're very worried, but we're also worried not only about the people who originate the lies, but the people who inadvertently circulate lies without doing fact-checking, without, and in some cases will ignore lies, without reporting when they know they are lies, not necessarily to the platform that has been established by the Electoral Commission with partners here, but even to the platforms themselves, because we have established in South Africa a level of understanding between ourselves and most of the platforms about the importance of dealing with things during elections in a way that tries to match the speed with which communication can take place.
Are you able to actually take action against political parties or people who are registered candidates who lie on Twitter? I mean, do you have jurisdiction, for example?
Look, first of all, it's going to depend very much on what the nature of the disinformation is. So, if it breaches the code of conduct in our view, we have the possibility to approach the electoral court. We don't have the possibility to adjudicate those things because it's a matter of interpretation. But we do have the possibility to approach the electoral court to put before the electoral court the disinformation that has been spread. So just for argument's sake, if somebody is going to be giving people a wrong time, a wrong date, or whatever of that kind about our electoral process, and therefore confusing voters, we have that possibility. Secondly, if there is what we consider to be very clear indications of hate speech and intimidation, for example, of women candidates or women journalists, which we've seen in the past, we, but also those people as individuals, have the possibility in terms of the electoral law to approach the electoral court directly to say this is something that needs to be ruled upon and then consequences follow. So there are opportunities. I wouldn't want to give the impression that it's an easy road, but I think what we've tried to do is to get people to recognize that just as social media is a platform for all of us to communicate very freely, it's also a platform that places an obligation on everybody to be more educated about how to use that platform responsibly, how to interact with the different social media organizations and ourselves if you have something that you suspect, how to check facts, and so on, because it's got to be a collective effort.
Are you worried that social media can be used in quite a difficult way to basically create more tensions? And we're going into an election that everyone describes as contentious. I don't know if that's really the right word. But are you worried that there can be a sort of insidious impact without anyone even really being able to hold anyone responsible? They just add to more tensions during an election.
Very worried. I think that, it's very much part of the risk assessment that we do within the Commission, that we have worked upon also in our engagements with the platforms, but also, of course, with the work that we do with the security sector within the country in preparation for the elections, in order to identify particular risk areas and particular risk issues. So the answer is absolutely yes.
Deputy Commissioner Janet Love, thank you. Deputy Chair, Vice Chair, I should say, of the Electoral Commission. Really appreciate the time.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, Sundowns are the best team in Africa. Don't take my word for it.
Yes, let's go to the coach of AmaZulu, Pablo Franco Martin. That's what he's labelled Sundowns as well. What a win for Sundowns yesterday, 3-0. And the scoreline, the AmaZulu coach feeling the quality from Sundowns was the difference.
We played against the best team in Africa. I already said the quality of the opposition, the way they play, the capacity they have to find spaces and to take advantage of them, and especially the quality when finishing is what decides the games.
Now, Banyana confirmed their place in the final round of qualifying for the Paris Olympics women's football tournament with their 1-0 second leg win against Tanzania took place at Mbombela Stadium last night. The South Africans won the first leg, and that was 3-0 in Tanzania, and they progressed 4-0 on aggregate. Meanwhile, Benny McCarthy wants the opportunity to coach Bafana Bafana and believes he can emulate Morocco and Ghana by taking the national team beyond the group stages and a World Cup finals. The Manchester United striker coach said that he doesn't want to be the current head coach Hugo Bruges' age when he takes the job. Bruges is currently 71 years old and will be hoping to qualify Bafana for the 2026 FIFA World Cup finals in the USA, Canada and Mexico. And finally, rugby news. France centre Jonathan Dante has been handed a 5-game suspension but could still be available for the Champions Cup playoff against the Stormers in Cape Town. He was handed a 5-game ban for his red card, and that was a dangerous tackle in the Six Nations match with Italy. That's a wrap off your sport. More for you, top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. Good morning, you're with SFM, leading the conversation. Stage 2 all day, we're told, 7:30.
And in the headlines, ANC-NEC member Thandi Modise has refuted claims that she has left the ANC and joined the MK party of former President Jacob Zuma. In an article by Opera News Hub, it is reported that Modise, who is also the Minister of Defence, left her position in cabinet and resigned from the ANC to join the newly formed MK party. In other news, the suspects arrested for the murder of rapper Keenan aka Forbes and his friend Tebello Tips Mzwane are expected to appear in court tomorrow. Yesterday, KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi confirmed the arrest of 6 suspects for the murders. And the organization Undoing Tax Abuse, OUTA, says no one should pay for e-tolls even if they receive summons. This follows reports that motorists will still have to pay their outstanding e-toll debt, despite Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi confirming that e-tolls will be completely scrapped by the end of March this year. More on these and other stories at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Quite a backlog approaching the airport on the R21 in Joburg. It's just a breakdown before Atlas Road, but the traffic's really substantially backed all the way through towards the Benoni exit. That's a heavy queue, and even heavier if you're running late. Coming through from Brakpan and Springs, there's a collision on the N17 just after the R23 Heidelberg Road exit of Brakpan. So just as you go between sort of Brakpan and Boksburg, if you like, some extra pressure to get through there. A lot of traffic lights out around Rampark Ridge, so Bayers Nordeer to Fairland across the highway, and Easterhout heading out to Randburg side. All very slow going. Big traffic as well out of Olivedale and Sharon Lee this morning. Northwold area, Malabongwe Drive, heavy towards the highway. President Fashia, both sides of Malabongwe quite heavily backed up. Traffic light issues there for the longest time, but it looks a little bit heavier this morning. Stationary truck after Kloof on the M13 going towards Hillcrest, the big car carrier that's stuck near the golf course. So from the top of Fields Hill, it's all fairly busy. Saw this Monday, saw it Tuesday, seeing it again today. Big pressure on the M7 heading through Queensborough towards Bel Air Road. I think the problem there is the roadworks and congestion on Bel Air Road heading up past Chief Albert Lutuli. It really is a massive queue. And if you come out of Pinetown and you go to Bluff or take the M7 to get to the N2, you might want to think about just rerouting out of Pinetown onto the N3 and then the N2 south for connections onto the M7, or just connections onto the N2. It really is worth avoiding that M7 eastbound. It really is very heavy. Protesting causing major delays at Mount Frere. Taxi Association blocking the N2. Major backlogs both ways, just north of Mount Frere. So Mount Aleph, Mount Frere is the section that's disrupted there. And Cape Town, a big delay as well on the N2 inbound. The taxi has overturned at Borchard's Quarry. Quite a nasty crash. Traffic on the N2 backed up from Spine Road in the Kaya Leacher area. Also Marine Drive just extending delays this morning. Normally acute out to Sunset Beach out of Tableview, but this morning skewed right down to Racecourse Road in the Paddocks area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Ray Machlaka, good morning again. Asian markets, US markets, how are they looking?
In the current trading session, both markets are down across the board. Investors are taking a cautious approach to investing or trading this morning. They are waiting for inflation data from the US and Europe before making investment decisions. The inflation data could have a notable impact on the outlook for interest rates. So in Asian markets, China's Shanghai Composite is down 0.4%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng and Japan's Nikkei are each down 0.1%. And And before the US market opens later today, the US futures market is down. Nasdaq, Dow Jones and S&P futures are each down 0.1%. And our local market, the JSE, was down 0.7% yesterday. The shares of retail and mining companies were mostly down.
Fitch is casting doubt on the credibility of the budget. That doesn't sound like a positive statement.
Not at all. Credit rating agency Fitch says that the 2024 budget was too optimistic regarding the government's revenue from tax collections. Fitch has also cast doubt about the National Treasury's ability to reduce government spending and debt. Government debt is expected to go from 5.2 trillion rand this year to 6 trillion rand by next year. Fitch says this debt outlook is understated and could be higher. This is because the government had not factored in additional financial support that it will have to give state-owned entities such as Transnet and the Post Office. These entities were not given a bailout during last week's budget.
And then Edward Kieswetter, he'll stay on as the SARS head for another 2 years.
Yeah, Kieswetter's term as the SARS commissioner has been extended by President Cyril Ramaphosa for 2 more years. The presidency says that the 2-year extension to Kieswetter's term would enable an orderly leadership transition. The 2 years will also give SARS and the presidency the space to find Kieswetter's successor. Kieswetter was appointed in March 2019 and took office for his 5-year term in May of that year.
Ray Machlaka, thank you. Ray, of course, back with us tomorrow. More business news through the day here on SFM, 23 minutes to 8.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag SAFM Sunrise.
Well, let's get more now on the nomination by President Cyril Ramaphosa of the Deputy Chief Justice, Mandisa Maya, to take over as Chief Justice when Chief Justice Raymond Zondo retires from the Constitutional Court. Professor Benita Meyersfeld is an Associate Professor at the Wits Law School. Professor Meyersfeld, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning.
Having a female Chief Justice in a profession still dominated by men, I suppose in a country where the sort of elite is still overwhelmingly male, how significant is that?
There, I think, are a number of aspects of this appointment which are significant. And the first is that we still have to talk about a female Chief Justice as opposed to a Chief Justice because it is so unusual. And that is obviously an indictment on the extent to which there's been transformation in the legal profession as a whole and also obviously on the court. And so over 30 years into democracy, the fact that there is this electric excitement about the appointment of a female Chief Justice, which of course we should be excited about, is still a reflection on the extent to which there has been a failure of transformation. It should be a norm at this point.
I mean, so many people call the legal profession, and I was reminded of this week, they call it a fraternity, which means brotherhood, rather than a sorority, which means sisterhood. And I imagine it still feels like a brotherhood, and I mean that not in a good way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it should be a community, right, or a profession. And I think you're absolutely right. There is an inherited structure of sexism and also a preference for those that are male and predominantly white. You know, I think there's still been that prevention or predominance rather of men over women and of white over black. And so the fact that we have the appointment of Justice Maya is something that certainly overrides those boundaries. And as much as those boundaries ought not to exist, we must celebrate the individual that is Justice Maya and her success. We must also query why we still have these sort of murmurings and tropes of her being a political appointment, or, you know, is she the right appointment given that Justice Malambo is also in the running? And I think, not to discredit any of the other justices in the running, I think it's sad that we still hear those tropes being rolled out about women in the profession.
Is Judge Meyer, I mean, it can be quite I've never been in a position like this, so it could be quite a difficult position. If you're I put this inverted commas, the first to do something, often the first woman to be in a position, people judge you differently, and you've touched on that, but people also ask you questions differently, don't you? They ask different questions. So what I'm trying to get to is, she might be in a position where she's asked questions different to the questions that have been asked by all the men who've been in that position.
Correct, and that certainly characterized the entire JSE proceedings in the last round of interviews for all of the positions in the judiciary, but certainly the positions of the Constitutional Court. And there was, as you may recall, quite an outcry about that, with a demand that there is a reform of the type of questions that may be put to Chief Justices, or all candidates rather, for the appointment to the judiciary in the country. And again, it's a representation of a continuation of all of the prejudices that we see in the profession as a whole, and those prejudices may be prohibited in terms of the Constitution and subordinate legislation, but they continue to exist. And I must emphasize those prejudices relate not only to sex and not only to gender, but also to race.
Her role is a symbol now, and I would like to think that we will have more women judges in the future, partly as a result of the leadership role that Judge Meyer will be taking up.
Yes, I think that's correct. I think as soon as we see the exposure of a prejudice in an institution and a form of discrimination within an institution, be it the JSE, be it the appointment process, be it how acting judges are appointed, as soon as we see an exposure of prejudice in those processes, then we can hope to ameliorate them. And now that we have, hopefully, there will be no change, the imminent appointment of a female chief and a female and black chief justice, because I think both of those are important components, that she is both black and female. There is definitely a moment of hope that it will lead to greater reform, both in the legal profession and in the judiciary. And it's important to note that reform in the legal profession is fundamental, given that it is from the legal profession, from the academia, that justices are selected. And if we don't have that kind of transformation within the profession as a whole, then we obviously have problems in pursuing a more representative judiciary.
Professor, thank you. Professor Bonita Meyersfeld is an associate professor at the School of Law at Wits University.
It takes one encounter with Africa for your world to change. From the 26th to the 28th of February, the global business event sector will experience the majesty of Africa at Meetings Africa. Meetings Africa showcases Africa's diverse services and products in the meetings, incentives, conferences, and exhibitions industry. Come experience Africa's spirit of collaboration at Sandton Convention Center. Meetings Africa, unlocking Africa's opportunities through quality connections.
Some say, Ematot Aipeli. Others are saying, who acts on a survey? Black and white, tackles gold and black in the DSTV Premiership. This is the Soweto Derby, Mzansi's biggest football jamboree. Sazo Shuba, Amapaganea versus Amakosi on Saturday, 9 March at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Let's start with Nkunzi and Peter Maritzburg. Nkunzi, hi. You want to talk about this Thandi Modise story? And it's strongly denied, of course, that she would ever leave the ANC.
Yes, Stephen. Firstly, if I may ask you, do you know who Baz Hub is?
Do I know who?
Baz Hub, the people who broke the story.
Oh, BizHub?
Yeah, is it BizHub? Yeah, BizHub.
I don't know. I don't know much about them, I'm afraid. Why?
Yeah, no, the reason why I'm asking that is it's quite embarrassing for your institution, for your corporation, to elevate that something on the fringes of the media, that people that we don't know, to put them inside in the mainstream and rely on their source. We don't even know what this bizarre is.
Yeah.
And let me just pass and then say, the MK people, those people are very good at spreading fake news. And they targeted a very wrong one.
It was...
You can't with Sandimoti say the ANC. No way. Maybe they can try people like Zwane and others, or Fred Mutant, but not Sandimoti. Never.
Yeah. No, and Kunzi, look, it was Opera News Hub, not BizHub. My apologies. Opera News Hub, I think it was. Yeah.
Opera
Look.
News Hub.
Yeah. Look, I hear you. I mean, I think she did issue a statement. I think she answered a question about it. So I think the SABC News was reporting on that. But I take your point in Kunzi, and it takes us to. I mean, some of these decisions can be quite difficult to sort of make. So I hear you. I can't speak for SABC News, obviously, but she did comment on it, and I think they were reporting on the comments. So, and Kunzi, thank you. I think you do raise an important point. Rex and Leidenberg, hi. You want to talk about apartheid, Rex?
No, I was listening to the Chief Justice this morning, and she was saying how she was always going to be in the ANC. She was going to die in the ANC. Now, that is fine. Now,
I don't think the Chief Justice... Hold on a second, Rex. Let's go back just a little bit. You're talking about the Deputy Chief, the person who's been nominated, Judge Meyer.
Yeah. I'm talking about her, yeah.
I don't know if she's ever said anything about being in the ANC. I don't think she ever said anything like that, Rex.
Didn't she say something like that this morning?
Not to me. Not that I've seen. Where did you see that?
A couple of minutes ago.
Where?
On the radio. Didn't she say that?
No, not on SAFM, no.
I thought that's what I must have misheard it.
Yeah, no, Rex, as far as I know, a judge is not allowed to be a member of a political party anyway.
Anyway, yeah, that is what I thought. Okay, but anyway, I've got a question anyway. What was the logic and reasoning, the rationale behind separate development which became apartheid? Now, the answer is not important. The process of answering the question, because if I ask you the question today and I ask you next week, 10 years' time, your answer is going to change. It's part of the transformation process. And it's a question that I haven't heard being answered. And I think it's very, very important. 30 years into democracy, you've got 70 years of hindsight on apartheid. That started in 1948. That's before your parents were born. Okay, so you go back and you ask the question. Your answers will change. And it's a very, very important part of the transformation process, the learning. So the question stays the same. What was the logic and reasoning behind separate development?
Don't quite understand your point, I'm afraid, Rex. What are you trying to get to? I appreciate that. I mean, yes, our views of history change. If you look at histories of World War II written in the 1950s and histories written now, they're very different. The same will happen around apartheid. I accept that, but I don't see where you're going at all.
Well, just there was a logic and reasoning behind separate development. The Nationalist Party didn't wake up one day and decide to become evil people. There was a logic and reasoning behind it.
Yes, now, but the logic and reasoning was evil.
Well, ask the question, Stephen, and see where it takes you. What was the logic and reasoning in 1948?
It was based on white supremacy, the idea that one group is superior to another, which is obviously wrong. I mean, it was based entirely on that. And there's a simple way to.
Stephen, that is the easy answer. I'm looking for the difficult answers. That is the easy answer.
All right, Rex, I think I'm afraid I'm going to end it there. I think we've heard enough, frankly. I don't think that helps us at all. Mdu's found where I think the sort of genesis of this idea of Judge Meyer and the ANC comes from. And in fact, there was a sort of ANC sort of Twitter post that had a picture of her, and then there was a big slamming of that, and I think they withdrew it immediately. But certainly, as far as I know, she had no role in that at all. You know what happens on Twitter, but as far as I know, she had absolutely no role in that. And as far as I know, Judge Meyer's never been a member of the ANC. I stand to correction, but as far as I know, that's not the case, and judges aren't members of political parties anyway. Stuart in Durban, hi. You run a telemarketing business, a call centre.
We do, Stephen. Good morning.
Go for it.
Stephen, just, obviously been listening to your conversation with the information regulator, and we fully support the work that she does and that her office does. But there's another side to the story that you don't present, which is that in an economy that's incredibly constrained, with very few opportunities for people without formal education who didn't have the privilege of going to good schools and to places like Rhodes University, there are very few opportunities. And we provide a genuine opportunity that is, it's proper work, it gives people, it enables them to feed their families. We take product to market in a way that people wouldn't get normally, and it has a value in the economy and has a value in our society. And the balance of that is the fact that you, as an individual, find our calls a nuisance call. I understand that. There are avenues available to you to opt out. You can approach the DMA. You can ask any reputable company that calls you will opt you out, will follow the popular regulations, and should do so when preparing their lead list. So this one-sided view that it is purely nuisance calls, it's your inconvenience, is, to be frank, quite a privileged position to adopt given the bigger picture, and it's a very one-sided view. And my final point on that is that 9 out of 10 people that complain are white males aged 25 to 55, or almost without exception. And that's
because they feel empowered to complain, Stuart. It would be much better if more people felt empowered to. I mean, I don't think you get to call me out on privilege around being irritated by the same company phoning me again and again and again. Even when you say, please don't call back. Even when you say again and again and again, please tell me where you got my number from, and the person doesn't answer. And the reason the person doesn't answer is because they don't know. And under the law, you have to say where you got the number from.
100%. I completely agree with you, and that's why my opening statement was we support the work of the information regulator, because in that situation, that person is infringing the law, and they should receive an enforcement notice, and they should be held accountable. Because what they do is they put everything at risk for everyone else. I have no truck with people like that being held accountable. They should be. So you're 100% correct. If a person calls you again and again and again, and you've made a request to do not call, take your complaint to the information regulator. You should.
Okay, but then you just said that I shouldn't because of my identity. Come on, Stuart, you can't have it both ways.
No, I didn't. I didn't say that. I simply pointed out the people who tend to be the most vocal about it, but who don't necessarily take action in the avenues that are available to them. For example, opting out with the DMA.
All right. So, Stuart, I must say, we did a whole mediated conversation on this, and we very specifically went to go and speak to an organization. Not everybody will speak as you have, and I appreciate the fact that you'll be so upfront about it, but we took great trouble to actually go and find an organization that represents the call center industry that employs people. So I'm not entirely sure.
The representative you spoke to was primarily focused on offshore operations. And that's not the same pressures as we have onshore. Sure, they have GDPR, etc., to look after, and similar legislation in the US, although it's not as stringent. But they focus primarily on customer service, etc. We're an outbound telemarketing company. We do it in a way that is not intended to be intrusive, and we are highly respectful of people who request not to call them again.
All right, Stuart. Look, we've heard you, and let me just say that one of the reasons we went the route that we did was that most people in your business, I mean, I'm pleased that you phoned in, but most people in your business wouldn't talk to us. So, it's strange how things pan out. So I'm glad we've heard your view.
Okay, absolutely. Well, thanks very much, Stephen, and thanks for your great show.
Sure. Stuart on the line from Durban. Thank you. 7 minutes to 8.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
If you've been with us a while this morning, you'll know about the disruption around the Mount Frere area. If you're just joining us, here's the latest. Taxi Association blocking the N2, both sides of Mount Frere, and there's a major backlog. We've just put a video up on x.com at Traffic SA. You can just log on and have a look, or move across if you're already on X platform, and have a look at Traffic SA and have a look at the traffic backlog around Mount Frere. You'll see that and you'll think it'll be a very good idea to just avoid travel at this hour into that Mount Frere area, both sides, on the Kumbu side and on the Mount Aleph side. Complete blockage of the N2 and a lot of traffic backlogging in that area this morning. Joburg side, the breakdown heading into the airport on the R21, that's all been cleared away, so the big backlog has made its way through there. Marlborough Drive up at Morningside, a crash near South Road, so coming in towards Stanton off the Mike 1 Highway, that's quite a heavy queue. If you're driving into Pretoria this morning, factor in queue time on the N4, that's the Emma Lethani Highway, going to be asked to sit in queue from Vata Lothomere Street down towards the N1 highway junction. Durban, the M7 remains heavily backed up. This has been a problem since probably late last week, but certainly this week. It's been heavily congested from Queensborough towards the Bluff direction, going down to the Bel Air and Wakesley Road. Very heavy. Another breakdown in the roadworks on the N3 out of Durban towards Pinetown, just in the usual spot there between Pavilion and Paradise Valley. And the reason you feel the effects of the breakdowns these days is because of the roadworks and the already reduced number of lanes. M13 quite heavy over the N2 bridge both ways, Sherwood through to Westville. At Cape Town, a major delay alert if you're driving in on the N2. A taxi's overturned by Borchard's Quarry. Traffic inbound from Khayelitsha remains back past Spine Road and almost back to Baden-Powell. Also crash on Mike Pienaar near the hospital. So if you're coming off Yiptiaga through the N1 highway in towards that Belleville-Para area, it's very slow going. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
There's a song that goes, "Money can't buy me love." And that's true. But then they told us all you need is love, which anybody with a mortgage will tell you most certainly is not true. Love won't pay your parking tickets or your student loan. It's also needy. It requires effort, availability, constant care. But more importantly, love requires time. And while money can't buy you love, it can certainly free up some of your time. Time to spend on the things you love, with the people you love. And if you're looking, maybe even time to find the one you love. That's why, after 50 years of investing, we've learned that time is the greatest gift of all. And the good news is, if you invest early, time gives you money. And then money gives you more time to do the things you love. And don't you love that about investing? Ellen Gray, long-term investing. Ellen Gray is an authorized FSP.
Pyramids FC trust their secret plan will trouble their Mauritanian visitors. But FC Nwadibu say they have traveled with the correct tools to rearrange the pyramids. This is the CAF Champions League. Do not miss out on Africa's beautiful game. Pyramids FC versus FC Nwadibu on Saturday 2 March at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
3 minutes to 8 now the time. Well, it seems another dispute or another installment in the dispute between the Minister of Public Enterprises, Pravin Gordhan, and the business rescue practitioner of Mango Airlines, Sipho Sono. Mango used to be part of SAA. The business rescue practitioner wants to sell the airline. Now, Gordhan says he's going to court to try and stop it from being sold. Sono says that if that happens, it will have to be wound up, liquidated. Potejo Mojapeda is an aviation analyst. Potejo, good morning to you. In a way, I have to start here. Does it matter? Is there really a realistic future for Mango?
Well, good morning, Stephen. Yes, there is a future in the LCC market in South Africa. South Africa aviation space have seen quite a substantial boom in the industry after COVID, and I do think that Mango still have an opportunity to come into the space and be able to be competitive with the rest of other airlines. I mean, you would know that Comair, which is Kulula, that was operating the same market of LCC, is no longer there, and Lift is it's very small, so they should be able to have a space to be able to operate in the market.
So the minister wants to keep Mango Airlines within government, and I don't know what that would mean for its relationship with SAA. And I know that it's complicated law, this, but I imagine the business rescue practitioner would kind of be allowed to do what he needs to do. That's why they were appointed.
Yeah, Minister and his department, they have shown a disrespect to court by not complying with the court order of responding in 30 days that they were supposed to have responded. And I think in that way, it was an uttermost disrespect to the court processes. As you know that you cannot, if you were stipulated, if the court order was stipulating that you should respond within a stipulated time, so they did not do that. And after the processes were concluded, they wanted to run to the court and interdict the BRP not to go ahead with the sale of Mango. And I can tell you now that indeed is going to be a final nail in the coffin should the interdict be granted to the minister, because they have failed, Stephen, to implement what the BRP recommended for mango to be sold. I mean, SAA today, we still don't know who actually has bought SAA. So what guarantee do we have that they'll be able to save mango? There's absolutely no guarantee.
It's been such a complicated story. I mean, the worst thing for mango, I suppose, is a delay. If there needs to be some sort of decision about it now.
Yeah, there has to be a decision. The market is not waiting for them to think in the boardroom, cozy boardrooms in Pretoria, but it's for them to make a determination and a decision. The industry is moving. New competitors are coming. Airlines are expanding. They're buying new planes. They are expanding their routes. And the conditions of the license says the license should be maintained within the 12 months. If they don't operate within 12 months, it means they are going to solicit or to forfeit those routes that they were supposed to have operated on. So the market is not waiting. Yes, it's booming, but at the end of the day, mango was a key player within the space, and I think there's still an opportunity for those that are interested in taking over that mango as a business to carry on and operate on.
Potego Mojapele, thanks very much indeed, aviation analyst. You're this FM leading the conversation, 8 o'clock.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
And top stories this hour. Modise rubbishes claims of joining MK Party, and Outer encourages non-payment of e-tolls. Good morning. And on our elections-related news, ANC-NEC member Thandi Modise has refuted claims that she has left the ANC and joined the MK Party of former President Jacob Zuma. In an article by Opera News Hub, it is reported that Modise, who is also the Minister of Defence, left her position in cabinet and resigned from the ANC to join the newly formed party. Modise was also a former member of MK. She has described the claims as nonsensical and only meant to sow divisions in the ANC.
I reject all these nonsensical lies that I have left the African National Congress for any other party. I will stay in the ANC. I intend to die as a member of the ANC, no matter what happens to the ANC. So I want people to know that those lies out there could not have come from me. And I want to say to the loyal members of the ANC, continue doing the good work of making sure that we continue to improve the living conditions of our people, that our comrades who have left, who have died even at the hands of the apartheid system, did not die in vain. And that is why no matter what happens within the ANC, I will stay a member of the African National Congress.
The IEC in the Western Cape will host a workshop to empower a cross-section of organizations in that province today. IEC Provincial Electoral Officer Michael Hendrickse will host various organizations, including NGOs and religious bodies in Cape Town. Hendrickse says they will cover a number of topics to provide organizations with knowledge and insight into electoral processes and related issues in the run-up to the elections in May. Michaela Lawrence reports.
Hendrickse says they will discuss the impact of legislative amendments, the inclusion of independents as candidates, the 3 ballot papers and the rollout of balloting education, as well as special votes. Hendrickse says the intention is for awareness around these topics to be shared with members of the attending organizations. Michaela Lawrence, SABC News, Cape Town.
The suspects arrested for the murder of rapper Keenan aka Forbes and his friend Debello Tibbs Motswane are expected to appear in court tomorrow. Yesterday, KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi confirmed the arrest of 6 suspects for the murders. Forbes and Motswane were killed last year in February in Durban. Police say they cannot rule out more arrests. Police spokesperson Atlenda Mate.
I can tell you we are going to be
the opposing bill. And I think the team has illustrated that they do have a solid case, because if we are saying the first aspect was arrested as far back as April, and he has been in custody since then, he has not been released, it tells you that we have enough evidence to prosecute.
The city of Ekurhuleni says water problems for residents during power cuts will be a thing of the past, as they have commissioned backup generators at 21 water supply infrastructure sites. The backup generators will be installed at reservoirs and pump stations to prevent water supply interruptions during load shedding and power outages. The city of Ekurhuleni's MMC for Energy, Water and Sanitation, Councillor Thembi Msane, says the generators can last for about 11 hours before refuel.
Water supply interruptions due to load shedding or power cuts are now a thing of the past in the city of Ekurhuleni. We have launched the installation and use of 21 backup generators at reservoirs, pump stations, as well as water towers.
The organization Undoing Tax Abuse, OUTA, says no one should pay for e-tolls even if they receive summons. This follows reports that motorists will have to still pay their outstanding e-toll debt, despite Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi confirming that e-tolls will be completely scrapped by end of March this year. Since inception 10 years ago, the Gauteng government has struggled to collect e-toll revenue from a large number of motorists who are not complying. Motorists in Gauteng are calling on the provincial government to look for other ways to settle the e-toll debt, as they cannot be forced to pay for a service that was ineffective to start with. OUTA CEO Wayne Duvenage is not confident that e-toll gantries will go off next month.
All the past history around this would indicate that it's going to be another missed deadline, especially after a recent announcement by Enoch Godongwana, the Minister of Finance, which indicated that this deal isn't finalised yet, there's still work to be done. But they've been saying this for some time, since October 2022 in the midterm budget policy statement, where Enoch Godongwana did indicate that they've made a decision to fund the bonds not through e-tolls but through other mechanisms. That signalled the end. It was supposed to be pulled at the end of 2022, then in March 2023, now we're in 2024, and they still haven't finalised.
Recapping our top story this hour, NEC member Thandi Modise has refuted claims that she has left the ANC and joined the MK party of former President Jacob Zuma. I'll be back with the headlines at the bottom of the hour. For SFM News, I am Nomalizo Mandela.
A very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headlines. It's soccer news. Africa's highest paid footballer, Percy Tau, lands himself a 96 million rand deal. And in cricket, Namibia all-rounder, that's Jan Nicol Lofty-Eaton, has set a new record for the fastest T20 International 100. Let's find out more just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good morning. If you're driving into Pretoria, just a reminder of heavy backlogs on the N4, the Emelafeni Highway. These come along every so often. You're going to sit and be asked to sit in traffic through Vitaman Street all the way down towards the M1. It does seem to be easing, but it is very busy. Crash on Joburg's Marlborough Drive, moving through towards South Road. If you're coming off the N1 Highway, the Mike 1 Highway on Marlborough Drive, going through to Rivonia Road, that's quite a heavy backlog into that crash scene. Durban, we've been tracking daily basis queues on the M7, and you're queuing up again this morning from the Queensborough side, Belleville Road, through the roadworks around Bel Air Road, heading up towards Chief Outlet Toohey. The M7 Bluffbound gets very heavy, and it has been every day this week so far, and I think even a hangover from last week. The N3 outbound, another breakdown in the roadworks before the M13 Paradise Valley split, so again a backlog of traffic passing Pavilion Mall. Cape Town, a major delay alert if you're inbound on the N2 this morning. A taxi crash, quite a bad one at Borchard's Quarry. The backlog is right back to Baden-Powell Drive. Very heavy coming in, passing Khayelitsha and Younger this morning. I think a lot of traffic has avoided that and instead jammed Stellenbosch Arterial, which is quite heavy from the R300, moving through Delft and Belhar in towards the Robert Sobukwe area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
9 after 8, good morning, you're with SFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. The rise in car thefts after 8:30 and why there's been such a big increase. Also, how are cars taken? Are they hijacked? Always very scary. Are they stolen? Still scary. And what happens to the cars afterwards and what this tells us about the rise of criminal syndicates. All of that to come in the next little while. Don't forget your calls as well. 086 000 2032. Lots of issues coming through. Was surprised to hear from someone in the telemarketing space, but you heard that conversation. I think, to sort of say that this creates jobs is an argument. It's part of the sort of discussion about it. That's fine. You have to adhere to the law, though, and the information regulator says in at least one of these cases around emails, people were not adhering to the law. So all of that to come. Also, of course, the nomination of Judge Mandisi Maya and just the usual issues that are happening in our society at the moment. Good morning.
ES Tunis is adamant a win is non-negotiable in front of their home fans against the Sudanese Giants. Meanwhile, Al Hilal is inspired that the best conclusion of the group stage is to triumph on foreign ground. This is the CAF Champions League. Witness Africa's beautiful game. ES Tunis clashes with Al Hilal on Saturday 2 March at 9 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on TTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Like what you hear? Enjoy more of your favorite SABC content on the SABC Plus app today. The SABC Plus app brings you all of SABC content from radio to TV on one platform. You can also stream some of the biggest sport matches whenever and wherever you are, courtesy of the SABC Plus app. Simply download the app on your chosen app store or register on www.sabc-plus.com. And start binging today. SABC Plus, still home.
Agenda setting conversations of the day.
11 minutes after 8 now, the time. Glad you're along with us this morning. Well, as you know, many people come to South Africa to make films. One of the films is called London Recruits. It was co-funded by the KwaZulu-Natal Film Commission, KZN Film. They've now opened the Simon Mabunu-Sabela KZN Film Television Awards for entries. And this conversation is brought to you by KZN Films. Jacinta de Nobrega is a film producer and part of the KZN Film Commission. Jacinta, good morning, and thanks very much indeed for your time this morning.
Good morning. Good morning to everyone. Thank you for having me.
Sure. London Recruits, what's the main idea of the film? How did it come about?
Okay, so London Recruits is a feature documentary. It's a co-production between my company as a South African Arclight Productions and the Fruit Rascals. It's a Welsh company, and it tells a story about Oliver Tambo, who set out this call to Ronnie Castrol to invite or at least bring young British men and women to South Africa to make sure that they send out the message that the ANC is alive and well. And the way they did it is by going around and blowing up, very safe, but blowing up leaflets. And this was a time before social media and instant messaging to make sure that South Africans knew that the ANC was still working towards our freedom. So that is the story. Last night we had our premiere at the Joburg Film Festival, and it was really successful.
And to coordinate this around the world, I mean, you had to work with people in different places. What was that like?
Yeah, it was, I did the Durban production part of the film. We shot in Wales and we shot in the UK. And as a co-production, I was the South African producer. We had a UK producer, Welsh producer, and lots of coordinating, lots of ensuring that the communication is clear. But ultimately, I say, it's a different way of working with people from different cultures. But there was one common goal, and we wanted to tell a really good story. And so that brought us together, yes.
Are you all still on the same WhatsApp group after all of that?
Yeah, because often, we are. I still like my director, Gordon May.
How did KZN Films help you?
So KZN, as an independent producer, I'm based in Durban. They take filmmakers to the different film festivals. So I went on a delegation with the KZN Film Fund to BFI London Film Festival. This was about 4 years ago. And it's really just to help filmmakers to explore and to build relationships with other producers internationally. And one of the people at the KZN Film Commission, which is Jackie Motsepe, was very integral in forming these kind of partnerships with other producers. So as a local producer, I travel around. I've just been to Berlinale with the Film Fund as well. And this is where you meet production companies, people. Then, you kind of discuss stories, and if it makes sense, you get together and you work together.
And working together with people from different places must be, around films in particular, must be amazing.
It really is. I'm currently working with a Korean production company, and that in itself is, it's been amazing. Just the cultural differences. I think as a producer, you really have to have an open mind and be aware of how different cultures work, communication styles, expectations. So it's an ongoing learning process for me, but it's a very interesting one.
Projects like this, would you film in KZN again?
Totally. That's where I do most of my work. I'm based in KZN. It offers a lot of locations, a great infrastructure. The support there for film makers is amazing. I've only ever done work in KZN, and I just always see myself working there because it makes sense for me.
Jacinta Nobrega, thanks very much indeed. A producer with the KwaZulu-Natal film producer. That conversation brought to you by KZN Film. Follow KZN Film's social media handles for more information on Facebook. The KwaZulu-Natal Film Commission's on Instagram and X at KZN Film. 15 minutes after 8.
Bafana Bastard remember what transpired in Lubumbashi when they went down by a goal to 0 against the Ravens. They want to ensure their visitors walk away with sad faces when they meet in the final group stage contest. However, the DRC outfit are confident of another upset. This is the CAF Champions League. Catch Mamelodi Sundowns versus TP Mazembe on Saturday 2 March at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. # We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Attention listeners, do you know a young visionary making a difference in South Africa? Sunday World is looking for unsung heroes. From community leaders to tech innovators, we're looking for the young minds driving positive change. Nominate someone who's making waves in education, science, tourism, or any field. Let's recognize and celebrate their contributions together. Nominate your unsung hero now, because every hero deserves their moment in the spotlight. # unsung heroes, # nominate now, # Sunday World. SundayWorld.co.za /heroes-nomination-2024.
At SFM Radio and at Stephen Grootes on Twitter.
Lots of views, lots of issues this morning. Dr. Brunk on the line from Cape Town. You want to talk transformation. Hi, Dr. Brunk.
Good morning. So, as far as I'm concerned, the biggest reason why there's a lack of transformation within the legal profession is because the minister of the DTIC refuses to sign the legal sector code. So the legal sector code is a sector-specific code for transformation, which will apply exclusively to the legal profession, and it was set up in consultation with the profession by the Legal Practice Council. The reason we need this legal sector code is because the large firms, traditional firms, tend to employ low-level staff of color, thereby leaving the attorneys untransformed. And the minister has refused to do this. Today, I'm signing a finding affidavit to compel the minister on behalf of Nadal, the BCA, and Pabasa, and we expect BLA to come on board later, in order to compel him to do this, because he failed to do this. It's shocking that a transformational minister within the ANC needs to be compelled to do his job and to sign a sector code that will allow proper transformation of the profession.
Has he explained, has Ephraim Patel, I haven't heard his version, but has he explained why he hasn't signed it? Is there any technical or legal or any other reason that he hasn't done so?
We have sent him, the organizations, 4 letters spanning a period of more than a year. He has failed to even respond to a single one. He has not given us the courtesy of a single response. This is the sheer, I don't know how to explain this. This is the job of the minister.
Yeah.
So the Department of Justice has sent to him in October of last year their final approval of the sector code. And the Minister of Justice has approved it and sent it to him in October. We've asked him twice since then why he is not gazetting it. No response. It is shocking. It is absolutely shocking.
Sure. I can hear your frustration. Are there other professions where the ministers refuse to sign off? I mean, I suppose it's hard to know, but it's such a strange thing. As you say, the minister is someone who wants transformation. Well, that's what he said.
Well, yes, but look, I'm not going to speculate as
to
why has got him and we should slow down transformation. I'm not going to speculate on that, but it seems to me preposterous that he cannot give a straight-faced explanation for his failure.
All right, Dr. Brink, thank you. Strong view there from Dr. Brink in Cape Town, identifies in that way around transformation. Interesting, I was not aware that Ibrahim Patel had not signed that. Lillian on the line from Orange Farm. Lillian, hi. Missing airtime, good morning.
Hi, Steve.
Go
Thanks
for
for
it.
taking my call.
Sure.
Yes, I'm missing my airtimes in Vodacom, and I've been trying to get hold of them. I even told them that I'm calling your station now.
Oh, really? And Lillian, how much airtime are you missing? What happened?
It started, it's about 2 weeks now. I didn't have a problem before, but I've realized it's 2 weeks now. I recharge. After making 2 calls, my airtime is gone.
Sure.
Then I recharge and then I put another airtime. That airtime doesn't go through. And I've lost those slips. It's about 91 rand or 92 rand now. And I'm not working. I'm just a 350 person.
No,
I'm trying to
sure.
call them. I've been using this network for almost 20 years.
Yeah. Aye. And Lillian, do you know if anyone else around you has had the same problem?
I've heard another lady. She said it is 2 weeks also, but I wasn't taking it seriously. But now it's 2 weeks, and I called them. They refer us to Toby, and when you need a human what is it called, human something, they take you to somebody else.
Yeah.
And he's telling me to make a call to another person. I don't even know that person.
Lillian, the calls that you made, they were in South Africa, right? They weren't
South
anywhere.
Africa, as usual, yes.
Yes.
Not,
Okay. And
like
this hadn't
always.
happened before? It had
No,
never
no.
No. Lillian, what a
It's been 2
strange
weeks
story.
now. I
yeah.
just realized it's 2 weeks because before I thought maybe there's something wrong with the phone or maybe I misused the network. But I recharged. All these recharges, they never went through. I mean, I never used that money.
Okay.
And I'm trying to explain to them this is happening. This guy is like, I'm a joke. And I'm not working. I'm trying to get my
No, of course. All right. Lillian, I'm sorry that's happened. I've taken your number. I hope that's all right. Let's see if we can sort of put a call into Vodacom. I mean, it's a lot of money that's affecting you, and I can see and I can hear the frustration in your voice as well. Lillian on the line from Orange Farm, thank you. I'm sure you aren't the only one who has this. You know, from time to time we get these calls, and sometimes I know there can be a misunderstanding, and there's no fault on the part of the actual cell phone company, but sometimes there is a problem on this, you know, and it does actually happen. JJ, hi. You're in Polokwane, this airtime issue. Do you have this problem too?
Yes. Good morning. What you're saying is correct. I had the similar problem where I recharge and then you find that within 2-3 minutes your airtime is gone. There are these pops-up adverts that they come on the phone. And those are the ones that are eating airtime. I ended up going to Vodacom, and then at Vodacom personally, they will try and block them. When you recharge, 3 minutes, 5 minutes down the line, your airtime is gone. So
Sure.
she should go to Vodacom and get those things removed. It's the pop-ups, those apps that are on the phone.
Yeah.
Even if you didn't touch them, sometimes they come on their own.
Yeah,
and
they
then
do.
Yeah.
That must be so frustrating. I mean, they're literally eating
Yeah,
your
it's frustrating.
money.
I was very angry when
I'm
I went
sure.
to Vodacom. And then they said, no, it's not ourselves.
Yeah. All right,
so
JJ.
people go there and then they'll correct that.
All right, JJ, thank you in Polokwane. Lillian, maybe maybe someone in your community can help you with that. You might not have to go to Vodacom, but that might be the issue, these pop-ups. I mean, that really must be so frustrating. JJ, thank you for that. And Lillian, I'm sorry you're having this trouble. 23 after 8.
The Science of Life on SAFM.
Well, the Onderstepoort Veterinary Academic Hospital, really still our only school at which you can study to become a vet. They've now received a big donation, it's 13 million rand, from the Roy McAlpine Charitable Foundation. They're going to use that money to build the biggest CT scanner ever used in veterinary practice in South Africa. Dr. Nicoline Hupner is a veterinary radiologist at the Faculty of Veterinary Science at the University of Pretoria, which includes Onderstepoort. Dr. Hupner, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Must be quite exciting to get a nice brand new big toy to play with. What are you going to do with it?
It's definitely very exciting. So we're planning on obviously offering the best diagnostics to our clients and patients, and then also stay at the forefront for high quality research.
And what are you able to see in the body of an animal that you couldn't see before?
So with this new CT scanner compared to our old scanner, we do get much higher quality images, so improving our diagnostic interpretation of these patients. I think our reconstructions that we find of these patients are of a much higher quality, so definitely assisting in making accurate diagnosis, or then helping the clinician, assisting them with a future diagnostic plan, or then even treatment plan if we can make a definitive diagnosis. So similar in humans, we can scan basically the entire animal if we can fit them into the CT scanner. It's much better for bony structures, but we do also get good quality images of soft tissue structures.
Well, I was going to say, animals come in very different shapes and sizes. One thing to do this to a mouse, another to do it to an elephant. How big can you go?
So we're still yet to find out. We're hoping that with the new CT scanner, the bore size is quite big, and we're hoping to look at some of our larger wildlife species. So potentially rhinos, mostly their heads, we'll possibly be able to fit in. We know that we can fit in horses. And then we can go very small as well with the scanner because of the high quality. So our smaller endangered species, exotic species, we can even have a good look at them.
I know for human beings you have to, I've never been in one, but I think you have to be very still. Do you have to put an animal to sleep? I don't mean to put them down. You actually have to, anesthetize them.
Yes, preferably. So motion can also affect the quality of the images. So we want them as still as possible. And obviously for a veterinary patient, we could just ask them to hold their breath or lie still. So we preferably put them under general anesthesia. If they are compromised and we are worried, we can sometimes get away with heavy sedation. But it does make the process a lot easier when they're quiet and lying still.
There's going to be a big demand. You're going to have a queue of animals, giraffes all the way down to rats trying to use this thing.
Yes, definitely. I think so. We hope so.
Thank you very much indeed. Dr. Nicoline Hupner is a veterinary radiologist at the Faculty of Veterinary Science at the University of Pretoria, so at Onderstepoort. That's a really big device that they're getting there. Interesting to see how the science of dealing with animals is changing in a way really quite quickly. You were there, SAFM, coming up now to 27 minutes after 8.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. Percy Tau.
Smiling all the way to the bank. Now, he is on the verge of becoming not only the most celebrated South African footballer, but the highest paid player on the African continent. Reports suggest a blockbuster new contract will Al Ahly will grant him a salary that eclipses any other African player. Now, while European clubs and his former South African team, Mamelodi Sundowns, expressed interest, the 29-year-old, nicknamed the Lion of Judah, looks set to remain in Egypt. Now, Egypt news outlets have revealed the figures, looking at around 96 million rand over the next 3 seasons. While the financial windfall is significant, Tau's immediate attention will be contributing to Al Ahly's success. This involves a showdown with young Africans in the CAF Champions League on Friday, the 1st of March. Soccer action to look forward to tonight. Both teams, both matches kicking off at 7:30. Golden Arrows taking on Sekhukhune United, and Cape Town City will play SuperSport United. Elsewhere, Christopher Nkunku's undergoing medical assessment ahead of Chelsea's FA Cup tie with Leeds United tonight, 9:30 the kickoff. The Frenchman has struggled with injury problems since joining the Blues in the 2023 summer transfer window. Now, Nkunku was used for just over an hour in total, and that was in Chelsea's Carabao Cup final defeat to Liverpool on Sunday, and he has picked up a knock. The forward has played just 10 times for Chelsea in all competitions since moving to Stamford Bridge from RB Leipzig, and has scored twice in that time. Cricket now. Namibia all-rounder Jan Nicol Lofty-Eaton has set a new record for the fastest T20 International 100 by hammering a 33-ball ton against Nepal in Kirtipur. In the opening game of a tri-series, also featuring the Netherlands, Lofty-Eaton smashed 11 fours and 8 sixes before being dismissed for 101 from 36 deliveries. The previous record was held by Nepal's Kushal Malla, who reached a T20I 100 from 34 balls against Mongolia last year. Now, Namibia posted 206 for 4, batting first, before Lofty-Eaton also took 2 wickets as host Nepal fell short in their chase, losing by 20 runs. The 3 teams competing in the tri-series have all qualified for the T20 World Cup to be held in June in the Caribbean and the United States. Tennis action. The world number 4, Daniel Medvedev, returned to action for the first time since the Australian Open final defeat. He had a straight sets win over Alexander Shevchenko in Dubai. Elsewhere, 18-year-old Jakub Mensik beat Gabor Koric after becoming the youngest finalist at a tour event since 2021, and that was in Doha. The man who ended the Czech teenager's dream run in Qatar was Karen Khachanov, was also among the round of 32 winners. And in another match, Lorenzo Sonego needed 3 sets to overcome the wildcard Sumit Nagal in the opening round of the ATP 500 event in Dubai. Sonego will face the top seed and the defending champion Daniel Medvedev in the next round. We'll have sport for you next here on SAFM around 12:30. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. The big increase in car theft. We'll find out what's behind that. You with SAFM leading the conversation. Good morning, 8:30.
And in the headlines, Deputy Chief Justice Mandisa Maya's nomination by President Cyril Ramaphosa to be the next Chief Justice has been widely welcomed. This as Chief Justice Raymond Zondo's term of office comes to an end on the 31st of August this year. In other news, ANC-NEC member Thandi Modise has refuted claims that she has left the ANC and joined the MK party of former President Jacob Zuma. In an article by Opera News Hub, it is reported that Modise, who is also the Minister of Defence, left her position in cabinet and resigned from the ANC to join the newly formed party. And Deputy Minister of Health Dr. Sibongiseni Dlomo says more than 230 million rand has been paid to ex-mine workers who were injured or contracted respiratory-related illnesses on duty. Details on these and other stories at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good morning. Just a reminder, if you're driving into Sandton through the Morningside area, collision on Rivonia and South, and both of those routes are backed up. South coming into Rivonia and Rivonia coming south on your way to Sandton. There's a bit of traffic on Greyston as well this morning, coming from Bramley, Wynberg side over the highway and through Catherine Street Junction. That's all quite snarled up, and still plenty of pressure out of Rampark Ridge Bay as Nordeer to the highway in Easterhout without traffic lights at Arabi Street is backlogging as well. If you're around Alberton on the 59, the R59 wanted to get onto the M12 West at the Reading interchange, just expect a delay or two there. That'll probably run for the next few hours. It normally does, those sort of operations. Durban's M7 still queuing. Queensborough down towards Bel Air and Wakesley. The queue is probably half of what it was earlier, but there's still some pressure if you're bluff bound. We saw it Monday, Tuesday, seeing it again today. It might be time you start thinking about alternative routes out of Pine Town towards the bluff during the peak morning periods. Cape Town, a major backlog on the N2 inbound towards the airport. There's a crash at Borchard's Quarry involving a taxi. Backlog to Baden Powell. Looks like a lot of traffic avoiding that and just jamming up Stellenbosch Arterial Delft through Belhar towards Robert Sobukwe. That Stellenbosch Arterial West is under pressure where it normally isn't. And a couple of crash scenes driving into Cape Town this morning on the N1. There's one on the side of the road at Besson in the Para area and another just through the Kuberg interchange. So the N1 stays heavily backed up from the Belleville area. And there's also just off the highway a crash on Mike Pinar, the extension of Yipta Yaga, just by the hospital. So if you're trying to get off the highway at Yipta Yaga, running into quite a backlog of traffic around that crash. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Keeping up with your TV license balance inquiries is now simpler than ever. No more waiting in queues. No more phone calls. Just SMS your ID or TV license account number to 44210 and secure your legal viewing fast and simple. Standard SMS rates will be charged. Terms and conditions apply. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
It takes one encounter with Africa for your world to change. From the 26th to the 28th of February, the global business event sector will experience the majesty of Africa at Meetings Africa. Meetings Africa showcases Africa's diverse services and products in the meetings, incentives, conferences, and exhibitions industry. Come experience Africa's spirit of collaboration at Sandton Convention Center. Meetings Africa, unlocking Africa's opportunities through quality connections.
Pyramids FC trust their secret plan will trouble their Mauritanian visitors. But FC Nwadibu say they have traveled with the correct tools to rearrange the pyramids. This is the CAF Champions League. Do not miss out on Africa's beautiful game. Pyramids FC versus FC Nwadibu on Saturday 2 March at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Mediated conversation on SAFM.
26 minutes now to 9 the time. Time for your mediated conversation this Wednesday morning. Over the last few years, you would have heard about the rise in violent crime and the rise in the murder rate around the country. In particular, we've seen that in most places. But it's also emerged that there was quite a big spike in the number of cars that were stolen around the country last year. At the same time, we've been told that one of the main reasons there's been such a big increase in violent crime is because of the rise of syndicates. In these areas, groups of people organizing and planning and then carrying out crimes. Related to that is all of the networks you need after that. You need to be able to sell cars, and connected to all of this is weapons and the rise in the number of illegal guns. So then, why has there been such a big increase in the number of crimes involving cars? What happens to them? How difficult is it to get these cars back when they've been stolen? First this morning, from Tracker, their Chief Operating Officer, the COO of Tracker SA, Duma Ngobo. Then we'll find out what this tells us about how crime has changed. Dr. Guy Lamb is the Director of the Conflict Peacebuilding and Risk Unit at the University of Stellenbosch, an expert on crime. And then finally, Kelvin Rafadi is a forensic investigator at Biz Trace, has been involved in trying to get cars back and in trying to stop them being stolen in the first place. We start then with the Chief Operating Officer at Tracker SA, Duma Ngobo. Duma, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning.
How many crimes involving cars are you seeing? Has the number changed over the last year, maybe over the last 18 months, or even since the start, perhaps, of the pandemic?
Unfortunately, we have seen quite a significant change. I think the pandemic gave us a false sense or a lull, as it were, in that we saw the vehicle crime rates slow down. Unfortunately, we have seen a significant increase post, say, the year 2021 going into 22, and even a sharper increase going into 2023.
Has it happened in particular places? I mean, are you seeing bigger increases in some provinces and not in others?
I think you do tend to see that, and that's largely driven by a number of factors, i.e. economic activities, the number of vehicles in the roads. So in Gauteng, it tends to account for a disproportionate a number of vehicle crime incidents, whereby we see almost 61% of vehicle crime incidents taking place in Gauteng, to a far lesser extent in KZN, and even lower within the Western Cape.
Is there any idea of why it would be so low in the Western Cape? I mean, there's a high number of cars there too. Is there something different about the geography, perhaps? Or is there something different maybe about where these cars are taken to?
I think there's two things that you need to draw inference from that. While I say it's relatively lower, that does not indicate that there is no crime taking place and that the types of crime are not worthy of concern. So in Johannesburg, we tend to see more thefts rather than hijackings, and that's largely driven by the sophistication of criminal syndicates that you find, a much more technologically advanced criminal element in Gauteng, whereas in the Western Cape, we see a very stark rate of hijackings. almost as much as 80% of vehicle crime incidents in the Western Cape are hijackings rather than theft. So that is a cause for concern.
That's quite something. I'm presuming that the overall number of hijackings has gone up with the number of crimes involving cars. I mean, has hijackings in Gauteng been a major component of the increase that you're talking about?
So if you look at, let's say, between outright theft and, say, robberies or hijackings, that tends to be, at least of our car park, 52% of the rates is theft and 48% is hijacking. That's a national number. And that must be compared against the sort of, let's call it 80-20 that you find in the Western Cape. Now, if you think about it, it means that the types of criminals we find here are much more attuned to using technology, which we see on some of the social media platforms and YouTube and so on. Whereas in the Western Cape, it's the use of guns and, let's call it, violence to achieve their nefarious ends.
Have we seen, I know cars have become, their sort of burglar alarms have become fancier and fancier over the years. Has that led to an increase in hijackings? And I don't know if anyone's been able to actually do that research, if one thing leads to the other. Do we know?
Yes, there is a causal relationship between the two. So in other words, where you see more technologically advanced vehicles, remember, crime is often opportunistic in the sense that there's somebody who has an order placed for a specific vehicle, and it depends whether it's local or for foreign export, in other words, cross-border transfer of vehicles. So if I'm looking for a vehicle and I have access to a firearm, I will tend to hijack the vehicle. Whereas the more sophisticated guys, these are much more planned events, and therefore they do use very advanced technological capabilities to steal cars.
When these cars are stolen, what happens to them? Where do they actually go?
It's an interesting question, and I really wish we had accurate numbers of cross-border crime. Some estimates indicate as much as 30% of vehicles or higher go across the borders every year, and that is to some of our surrounding countries, but as far up north as Nigeria and Ghana, for that matter. But there is a very much a local industry, and this is either for the car as a whole or for second-hand parts. Some of the chop shops that we see everywhere, where these parts do get stolen. I think you've seen from time to time where the lights of the vehicle or the mirrors get taken, and that's very much for the local market, as it were.
A big part of this, of course, is the way that these are tracked. They're tracked by you, they're tracked by other people. Some cars actually come with a device in it. You can see on your phone where it is. Are thieves people able to work out where the trackers are? Is that why they maybe take the car apart rather than sell the whole car?
I think both comments are true. A lot of the OEMs now, the vehicles come out with an infotainment system that's got some telematics ability. In other words, you can see your vehicle on the app, you can control certain features and so on. But that's very much for the OEM and the customer to give a differentiated experience, as it were. Whereas what we do is very much in the stolen vehicle recovery and other dimensions like impacts, accidents, etc. A car is essentially a box. Let's face it. It's the same shape, and so experts in vehicle crime, given enough time, they learn how to strip a vehicle relatively quickly. The components now are much more plastic rather than metal, and therefore, with relative ease, you can strip a vehicle down in a matter of hours, and it is possible to locate the tracking unit and so on. So I can't deny that is very much a possibility that we are constantly counteracting.
Do you know if particular gangs or syndicates are involved in this? I mean, obviously some of these are very organized. Do we know if it's, one big group of gangs or if it's a bit more complicated than that?
Look, there is some repeat offender influence in this. I think one of our key people in our organization wrote a paper on the propensity for repeat offenders to commit crime. So there is that. But there's also a preponderance of sophisticated crime syndicates. I think if you read any of the latest South African police or SAPS crime stats, the quarterly ones, they'll indicate some sophistication. And the vehicle is very much of the trio crime triangle. So in other words, to commit a crime, you need a vehicle, you need a firearm. And we see the vehicles playing a significant role in a lot of our CITs, in a lot of bank robberies or ATM bombings. We see very much stolen or hijacked vehicles being used to commit these nefarious acts.
Duma, thank you. Duma Ngobo's the Chief Operating Officer at Tracker SA. Really appreciate the time. You're with SAFM, 17 minutes to 9. Continue your mediator conversation around the rise in the number of cars being stolen or hijacked. Dr. Guy Lamb is the Director of the Conflict, Peace Building and Risk Unit at the University of Stellenbosch. Dr. Lamb, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen.
I would imagine that car theft is a crime that in some cases syndicates are in. Is there maybe a link between the rise in the number of cars being stolen and the rise in criminal syndicates that you've discussed with us before?
Absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, let's just kind of look briefly at the kind of national stats. I mean, we've seen over the past 10 years a 100% increase in car hijackings, for example. So it started in 2013, 2014 at around 11,000, and it's jumped up to close to 23,000 in the most recent annual statistics. So, of course, something needs to be driving that particular dramatic jump, and it probably speaks to, the increase in the activities of organized criminal groups. We've certainly seen them focusing on certain sectors such as extortion, the drug trade, money laundering, and of course, there are vehicles that are of value on the road, so it's completely understandable that you've seen organized crime playing quite an important role in this.
I mean, some gangs, I presume, specialize in this. This is what they do. They steal cars.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look, for example, at cars being stolen where the owner or driver is not present, and the more kind of sophisticated, more modern vehicles, there are security systems that you have to overcome. You have to be able to kind of do intelligence gathering around where's the best place to steal these vehicles. So therefore, you kind of have to have some sort of expertise. You need the tools, you need the technology, as the first speaker mentioned, in order to steal these cars. And then, of course, around car hijackings, where you actually do need to figure out where the best place is to go and hijack vehicles. You need firearms. You need to kind of have a system in place where you have where you confront drivers and you kind of compel them to part with their vehicles.
It seems that there's such a big rise in this. What would lead to this suddenly increasing? Is there just a change in the market? Is it just possible to do? Has something else happened?
I mean, I think we can really sort of speculate about this. I mean, we've seen, Gauteng, as the previous speaker did mention, accounts, if we look at the police statistics, accounts for about 50%, and traditionally has 50% of carjackings, where, sort of slightly lower in other provinces, but we've seen some major increases. So certainly within Gauteng, I think we can probably attribute it to, the more sophisticated, security systems, and in other places where it's sometimes easier for gangs to be targeting vehicles where there's a driver in those vehicles. Also, it can be linked to other forms of crime, for example, getting people's valuables, getting people's PIN codes to their bank accounts. So that's another dimension of this. It's around you not only want the car, but you want the person. So if, for example, seen a rise in kidnappings in relation to carjackings too. But a very interesting development and trend is within the Western Cape, where we've seen a sort of a kind of a 300% increase in carjackings in the Western Cape, and more recently we've seen dramatic increases. But in the traditionally high crime areas, such as the Nyangas, the Kailichas, the Philippi East, and Falanis, and these would typically be individuals who are not necessarily driving upper-end vehicles. These are, local gangsters, local criminals who are targeting residents in those areas who might not necessarily have fancy cars. So that's a different dynamic that's going on, where those vehicles have value, but not as much value as the luxury vehicles. But still, the market is kind of driving that kind of crime.
Are a lot of these cars taken over the border? I mean, is there really a big market in some of the other countries around us for these cars? It would seem difficult for me to really believe that that's a very big market.
I mean, it has been in place. We don't know the full extent of it. We do know in certain neighboring countries there's certain vehicles, particularly SUVs, particularly 4x4s, that are in demand, and we've seen police operations that have demonstrated this, particularly through SAPCO, which is the Regional Police Chiefs Cooperation Organization with Interpol. As the previous speaker mentioned, I think a lot of it has to do with sort of chop shops with parts being stolen and resold. But I still think there is a significant component of vehicles going overseas to other countries, but I think there is a domestic driver of a lot of this kind of theft too.
Is it a difficult crime to solve? I mean, often a person who has a car, especially a fancy car, is insured, they move on with their lives. But to track and then break these gangs or to arrest the people in these gangs, I imagine is quite difficult. Once they've got the car, by definition, they can get out of the area very quickly. You're not going to catch them.
Unless, of course, there's a tracking device on it, unless, of course, there's CCTV. And, I mean, we've seen those kind of scenarios. We've also got CCTV, you've got license plate recognition. A lot of these systems are very sophisticated. So we've seen success around that. I think the kind of challenge often is around the policing of this. So, police obviously have specialist operations in place to deal with this. They've got to gather the intelligence. And part of the problem is sometimes the vehicle is abandoned and the police don't have sufficient evidence to kind of pursue a case against an individual or individuals.
Do you think we're going to continue to see this increase, that more and more cars are going to be stolen? This is a crime where clearly there's been driven by the market. We know the rise in syndicates, so can we expect more increases in this in the future?
I think we will. I mean, if we look at the past 10 years, it's been pretty much a constant upward trend. So unless there are specific sort of interventions or technological innovations that are introduced into the sector, or, the police develop, a number of specialized units, which are unlikely because that takes money. So we're probably either to see this staying at a heightened level or continuing to increase.
Dr. Guy Lamb, thank you, Director for the Conflict, Peace Building and Risk Unit at the University of Stellenbosch. In a moment, Kelvin Rafadi, a forensic investigator with Biz Traces. 11 minutes now to 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still very slow for this time of morning out of the Rampart Ridge area. There are multiple traffic light outages on Beyers Nordia and quite a big one on Easterhout and Rabi. So if you're heading towards Ramburg or towards Fairland, it's just a bit sluggish. South Road coming through Morningside towards Ravonia, an early crash there. If you're on your way in towards Sandton, that's quite a heavy backlog. And still a bit of traffic, not desperately heavy, but a bit of traffic on the N1 between Old Joburg Road and the New Road exit this morning. Over into Durban, the M7 has eased dramatically if you're heading towards the bluff there. The big backlog seems to be about 6:45 to around about sort of 8:30. That's coming from Queensborough down towards Bel Air and Wakesley. So if you drive through the sort of cut and thrust of rush hour, Pine Town to the bluff these days, just make sure you've got plenty of time to get through. It's construction at Bel Air Road that causes that backlog. Don't forget, a little bit later today, the N3 and the R103 are both scheduled to be closed at the same time for blasting between Ashburton and Linfield Park. So with both routes closed, that'll prevent any sort of direct through traffic between Durban and Pietermaritzburg for half an hour, 2:30 until 3 p.m. These things can overrun, so we'd put that caveat on it. So if you're travelling Durban, Pietermaritzburg, go before 2:30 or go sort of after 3:30 just to avoid the closure, any potential overrun and the backlog that will result from the closure of both of those routes. Cape Town this morning, still very heavy on the N1 inbound. There is a crash on the side of the highway at Kilbasson, and then an earlier crash at Kuburg interchange backed everything up, and that's all been released and cleared, but it's heavy really from Belleville right through to city centre and the elevated freeway, and still pretty sluggish coming in from Khayelitsha. A crash on the side of the N2 at Borges Quarry, delays through from Spine Road. Alternative route traffic also backing up, particularly Stellenbosch arterial, heavy through Belhar towards Robert Sobukwe. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The Portfolio Committee on Public Works and Roads Community Safety and Transport Management will conduct a public hearing on Marine Pollution Amendment Bill and Transport Appeal Tribunal Amendment Bill on the 29th of February 2024 at Madiboho Community Hall in Madiboho, Ngaka Mudirimulema District, Ching Community Hall Extension 4 in Fennesdorp, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, Hamariba Tribal Hall in Morukwenya, Dr. Ruth Sohomosi Mumpati, Letabile Community Hall in Letabile, Buchanala District. All hearing starts at 10 in the morning.
The FNB Stadium will be painted in black and white as well as gold and black on Saturday, 9 March. You can also be there. 2 lucky fans stand a chance to win a VIP experience at the Soweto Derby, including transport and a supporter's jersey of your choice, courtesy of SABC Sport. To enter this thrilling giveaway, rush to sabcsport.com and visit the competition page. Entries close on Tuesday, 5 March 2024. T's and C's apply. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Mediated conversation on SAFM.
8 minutes to 9 the time. Continue your mediated conversation this morning about the big increase in crimes involving cars. Kelvin Rafadi is a forensic investigator at Biz Traces. Kelvin, good morning.
Good morning, Steve, and good morning to your listeners.
When you investigate these crimes, who's normally behind them? I mean, what kind of person is involved in a crime like this? Kelvin? Well, it'll be the second time we've lost a line today. Kelvin Rafadi, I don't think you're still with us. We're going to try and just sort out that phone line, see if we're able to get you back on a different line. Sorry about this. Not the way we choose to end the mediated conversation this morning. But as you know, it does happen from time to time. So, yeah, trying to sort of work out what the problem is with Kelvin Rafadi's line, see if we're able to get him for you to try and understand what exactly is going on. But it's an important question, I suspect, as to what happens with these gangs and the people who are actually involved in this kind of crime, and also what would work to try and stop it. And this really takes us to the issue of car security. Let's see if we're able to get Kelvin Rafadi back for you and just to continue that conversation. I think Kelvin Rafadi from Biz Trace is with us now. Kelvin, good morning. Sorry about that.
Morning, yes.
Okay, when you investigate these crimes, who do you find is usually involved? What kind of gang are we talking about?
Yeah, look, there's a number of gangs and syndicates, and very sophisticated ones, to a point that there's a lot of recruitment in this particular space or industry, we can call them, whereby cars are mostly ordered. And, they even send the small boys this nowadays to go and commit these particular crimes. So they become the big fishes where now they can easily buy and, get rid of these cars, take them to the SADC region. Now, I want to quickly expose the modus operandi and the solution. Now, those particular gangs, what they normally do, those who hijack, they've got technology like what Duma said. They've got the cell phone jammers, of which they switch it on to block the signal of most of the signal when they are dismantling the tracker. And then they've got two-way radios that they themselves, they communicate it through the two-way radio, because remember, the signal of the cell phones will be jammed. While they held anybody captive, they normally go on an app and transfer money and go to the ATMs and withdraw some of the money. But in most incidents, they even stop most of their, unsuspecting victims through the blue light. And we want to ask the police to do away with the, unmarked vehicles with the blue lights, because of they acting covert. And these criminals, they take that opportunity to use the same opportunity to stop some of the unsuspecting victims. Now, what Mr. Duma has said also with the technology, there's this thing of the key fob. Now, the key fob, it's a technology whereby they park close to you on the car that they've been ordered, and then they can actually decode your key and then jump into the vehicle and get away with that particular vehicle. Now, we urge some of our listeners who are driving keyless button vehicles to go back to the route of having the steering locks. You remember the Gorilla, Steve, those steering locks. Because once that happens, even when somebody can decode your key, enter into your vehicle quickly, once there's a steering lock, they can now drive with that particular vehicle. Now, some of the cars, they use them, like we say, in robberies, of CTIs, kidnappings, and then some of the cars, they even use them locally as what we call the taxis in the townships, the 4+1, but it depends on the vehicles, not the 4x4s, not the SUVs. And some they strip it around to sell for parts. But here's another thing now. There's a syndicate in the same industry that deals with what we call the chassis numbers. Now, the chassis numbers, you get they are called the stickers, whereby you get a chassis number in the front windscreen, or on the front of the windscreen, and on the side of the door and in an engine. Now, there are guys syndicate who print the duplicated ones of the cars that are not stolen to provide some of this particular syndicate, so that they easily can take the car across, the border. And similarly, they can also change the disc or manufacture the license disc with the good expiry date, and also manufacture data dot for that particular vehicle. Now, we urge some of, the border management control to verify if the car has got insurance, and if they give out the letter of insurance, they must also call the insurance and verify that indeed, is it the real client who you have gave permission to take the car across? Because such measures, if they don't do, the car can easily go across outside the country. But indeed, definitely, this is a big crime that is taking place of these particular vehicles. And the criminals, why there are so many hotspots that have been identified in Gauteng, is because they don't want to drive far with the vehicle. Once they dismantle the track of the vehicle, there's a safe house where they will normally take the car and park it, or maybe at the townhouse by the parking. But in some of the areas where now they dismantle the tracker, they are very strategic to sit and see at the main road if any tracker vehicle is not coming for response or any police coming in. So they are very strategic. So they choose places where now they end up becoming the hotspots.
Sure. If you bust one gang, do you find another group just takes its place? I mean, you talk about how sophisticated they are. They have resources, big resources.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, the thing, like I say, there's a lot of recruitment. Some of the cars are even ordered, even in prison. There are gangs who run the facility of ordering vehicles because they are the trusted ones, or they've got connections even at the, up there in Africa. So because some of these vehicles, even when they are taken across, it's not always the case that they get paid through, cash or forex money. Some are even in exchange of weapons or even certain minerals for that effect.
It's really quite amazing. I mean, I'm struck by the fact that they can block the trackers so easily. The whole point of having a tracker in the car is that you can get your car back.
No, definitely they do block the tracker through this, the cell phone jammer. And that's another thing, that shops that sell this particular devices, I mean, it's unlawful. Only military can block the signal, and ICASA must raid these particular shops, which are around Bruma and Mayfair side, where you can buy this particular device and just block any signal of a cell phone. It's not allowed. It's illegal. So they need to start raiding these shops, because these boys, they get this particular tool to go and commit further crimes, which now we end up seeing so many hijackings in this space.
Kelvin Rafadi, thank you. Really appreciate the time. A forensic investigator at Biz Traces. My thanks also to Dr. Guy Lamb, Director of the Conflict, Peacebuilding and Risk Unit at the University of Stellenbosch. And starting us off today, the Chief Operating Officer at Tracker SA, Duma Ngobo. Well, you heard the prediction from Guy Lamb earlier that unfortunately this crime is likely to continue to increase. We will see you tomorrow. Kathy is next from Mdu, Melissa, Stanza, Zelma. Myself, look after yourself. You're this FM leading the conversation. It's 9 o'clock.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
Top stories this hour. More arrests not ruled out in AKA's murder in KZN Sopa to take place. Good morning. Police say they cannot rule out more arrests for the murder of rapper Keenan, aka Forbes, and his friend Dibello Tibbs Motswane. Yesterday, KZN Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi confirmed the arrest of 6 suspects. They are expected to appear in court tomorrow. The police's Atlanta Mate says police have been working hard to track the suspects.
I can tell you we are going to be opposing bail, and I think the team has illustrated that they do have a solid case, because if we are saying the first suspect was arrested as far back as April and he has been in custody since then, he has not been released, it tells you that we have enough evidence to prosecute.
Deputy Chief Justice Mandisa Maya's nomination by President Cyril Ramaphosa to be the next Chief Justice has been widely welcomed. This as Chief Justice Raymond Zondo's term of office comes to an end on the 31st of August this year. If appointed, this will make Maya the first female Chief Justice since the dawn of democracy. Maya was first appointed to the bench in 2000 and has gone on to hold positions of Deputy President and President of the Supreme Court of Appeals. Presidency spokesperson Vincent Makwenya.
The President has invited the leaders of political parties represented in the National Assembly to make submissions on the suitability or otherwise of Deputy Chief Justice Maya to hold the office of Chief Justice. President Ramaphosa has drawn the attention of leaders of political parties to Judge Maya's illustrious judicial career, in which she was first appointed as a judge